Wu-sabat, my son, and welcome to another live reading. We're going to be continuing and concluding our scroll today. Actual fact, Qaqas-Hu. That means his story. All right. So before we get into our reading today, let's just do a couple breathing exercises together. We're going to acknowledge our master teacher. We're going to acknowledge each other and ourselves in power. And we're going to get right into our reading. So let's just start by standing up. So start by standing up and doing a few breathing exercises. This will help to that will help you to digest the scroll a lot better. All right. So take the time and to charge up. All right. You're going to think of the breath as powered, the all expanding, because we do something called smile, complete union. So now you see we're working for unity within our own selves. All right. From your mental body, your physical body, your emotional body, and essentially, which is going to be your physical body, and essentially your etheric counterpart, all happening right here, which we know that the breath itself is a gateway. All right. A gateway known as miftah. All right. It's a thing of opening. All right. So become a miftah and breathe properly. All right. And hear the word tah and tahites. All right. So we're going back to our original form. And that's why we tune up before all that other things happen. Because why? It's about who we really are, not what we became. All right. Over the different politics and cycles and different things like that. All right. So it's about who you are. So use that breath so you can remember as a member of Ray. All right. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, and you're helping to assess yourself as you put yourself back in the image of natural nature. All right. Start with your breath. All right. So take a deep breath in through your thing of opening. All right. And letting your stomach relax so your diaphragm can descend like the band on this dress. All right. Sits exactly where the diaphragm is. And when I breathe in deeply, my stomach goes out because that's your diaphragm descending down. That's a muscle. All right. And as you keep inhaling down, your lungs start expanding outward. And as you keep inhaling, the air starts moving upward. All right. So it becomes an all expanding. And you're going to hold the breath for a moment because you're absorbing the power, all right, known as the Sakhem, the life force, which is abundant in the air, all right. Natural, other natural races may know about it as well as prana, chi, all right, we call it Sakhem. That's the counterpart of oxygen, which is abundant, all right, in all living things, especially the air. And you exhale. So that's you tapping into the guidance, wisdom, and the healing from Paa Taraq, our overseers, our forces, all right, that we tap into is the very forces of natural nature, the very forces that we grew from, who birthed the spirits, all right, and flesh and blood, all right, from where the soul is from. That's what we tap into. We tap into Paa Taraq, all right, the very forces of natural nature. And you feel supported as a moon Taraq, or one who is of natural nature, all right, as their child. And you feel the love, support, and healing from your overseers who are Paa Taraq, the very forces of natural nature. And you're going to exhale that same love, healing, wisdom, and I shook for your fellow brothers and sisters. And that is the proper way of breathing. That is the rhythmic breath. And now we have created this one conduit where we're in this divine circle of Ashuk, of healing. All right. There's so many exercises, but basically the basic smile, you want to take time and just do a basic smile breath, because life itself is a prayer. All right. Your breath, your breath is a prayer. That's what I meant to say. Did you know that breathing itself is a prayer? So with breath, you have life. All right. You have that spark of life. So in this divine circle of healing, we welcome our master teacher, Baabaa Yaanun, in the personage of His Excellency Malachi York Okran, our Zeti, the very nucleus that brings us all together. All right. And as we chant for ourselves and we breathe for ourselves, we know that we are automatically breathing for our master teacher. Why? Because he is for us, from us, sent from us, right back to us. All right. He's one of ours. All right. And he is here for us to renew our story. So as we acknowledge our master teacher, we're acknowledging ourselves in our one collective body. And as I acknowledge myself, I'm acknowledging you. And that's why we say, Apta Paa Taraq la rawuk Yaanun, Apta Paa Babab la Yehu. And you say that whenever you need support and guidance. And you say, open the way to the soul. And notice that door is inward. And notice that you're going towards Pa'ut. And that's why you say, I am inside the divine love of the all expanding. And all divine love is in me. Abdul Kalat Purarat, Wufa Kor, Bisamus, Papawut. Begin all prayers and thinking by using the all expanding Samus, using. So use your thing of opening, use your breath, use your nose, use your anatomy, all right, as you're animated as nature intended, all right, for your specific purpose in Pa'ut. Baror, 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 nabab mutar mutar. Nahutz mutar badet patah. Nahutz muklas badet yanun. Holy, 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 Master, Overseer Almighty. What is greater than Pa'ut? Where can you take all? Where would you take from all? Because where can you put it? All right? That's our Master, Overseer Almighty. Holy, holy. One whole story. That's our story. All existing gases, everything that ever was, everything that ever will be, all taking place right here in our full potential as one collective soul body. And that's the story of our people. Paa Taraq, the affirmation. I affirm that I am inside the divine love of all expanding, and all divine love is inside me. Anuki Jawef Pa Ashuk M Pa Pahut. Wu Kalel Ashuk Kawun Jawef Niya. Anuki Kasamun M Pa Pahut. Wu Pa Pahut Kawun Kasamun M Niya. Anuki Wahu Ame Pa Pahut. Wu Pa Pahut Kawun Wahu Ame Niya. Nakok Kadol Naja Ame Kasam Em Pa Pahut. Wu Kabub Ame Mushkas Nakuk Kado Kawan Kalal Pafef Nakuk Ayo Jawe Pa Pahut. Ame Wase Ame Ayani Kawun Lake Bapor Jawe Pa Pahut. Anuki Abed Bi Nafashni. Pa Pahut Kawun Anuki. Pa Pahut Kador Nakuk Kador. Pa Pahut Amul Nakuk Amul. It's time to renew our story. And we acknowledge that this book is the truth and the way. Pasawabu Pa Taraq. Hanin Mispa Kawun. Pasawabu Pa Taraq. Ze Kawuna Nazula Lahe Amtkun. Manemas patu masaa. Ama hadea mumuda mau. Manemusa fuku. Unataru. Arjulaye nafashukum. Afukshane kawunkum. Pasawabu Paa Taraq. Pahadeamu padaman. Nahum tawuantkum. Lahepanendamal ushafe. Nahum tawuantkum. Lahetem nasoinu. Nahum tawuantkum. Lahe ashakuma. Antkum ater muslafunu. Nahun ater mukrarukum. Nahun salub nasakuma. Nahun salub nasakuma. Ansanun kahena taru. Ansanun muslafunu. Nahun ater muspatu. Anun atun. Atun. Amun. We are Sabians. Notice through all of our cycles, all the way from our noon ray to our tune ray, to our tune ray, to our moon ray, we're still here from season to season. And this is our story, all right? As we set our own record straight, all right? And Tawakum, Nataru, Wumuntaru, for this guidance and this healing, we accept it. And Tawatak Baabaa Yaanun in the personage of His Excellency Dr. Malachi York Okran Zeddy, all right, who brings us all together to renew our story. And Tawakum to our Muslafu, all right, for supporting us thus far, because we're still here, all right, in our collective body as one family, all right. That's what we're getting back to. And Tawakum Muslafu, as we're doing our very best to transform into the very best versions of ourselves in our one collective body. All right. So let's get back to our scroll. All right. So we read quite a bit of the scroll, so we're gonna finish it today. All right. Actual fact. Series number 73, sent down for you or us, Sabians, all right, entitled Qaqas-Hu. That's our Lahaj. And in English, it's his story, all right? And notice that we're talking about these various beings that infiltrated the hearts, minds, and souls and bodies of the people. We're going to untangle their story from our story, all right? Before we start reading, let's acknowledge our master teacher. Baabaa Yaanun means the master teacher. All right. And His Excellency Malachi Z. York Okran. Kobina means born Tuesday, June 26, 1945 AD in Ghana, Africa, as Baba brings us the scroll of eyes. All right. Because it's time to open our mind's eye once again. So you see why we are wearing our mitzvah. All right. All right. And we don't call it a bindi, although other cultures, you know, they have their third eye as well, which is a great thing. All right. For us, it's not just a vanity piece. All right. It taps into the whole awareness of our one self. All right. So before we get started, can I be heard?
Yes.
All right, great.
And thank you for doing this room as well.
Oh yeah, Tower hat for everybody showing up and everybody uh taking time to tune themselves up. It's gonna come in handy. We'll see it come together. All right. So we're gonna continue from page 42. All right. So let's go back. So we went into the bloodline of these various Anunnaki, all right, and how they mixed in with the Adamites from Inky seed, all right, and also from Enlil seed as brothers, all right. They were blood brothers, all right. So whether you're dealing with Inky's branch or you're dealing with Enlil's branch, you're still dealing with the same Anunnaki agenda to some shape or form, even though they disagree at times. But you see a lot of them disagree at times. The same way that we went through these founders of various sects, all right, or religious schools. So you have the school of Satanism, all right. He was against the Christian church, but at the same time, you see it's still an extension of this Christian church, as you have the 5 pillars around him, all right, taking him back. And then also, as he said that the church was too repressive, all right. So he felt like it was about indulging yourself. Stop repressing yourself because that's not a natural thing. You should let yourself do whatever you want, all right. But in actuality, all right, let me see, hating Satanism. So that's why he was a proponent for, let's just say, the Satan, all right. So stop repressing yourself. That might sound good, but then you see you're going back to the same forces, all right. Because we still, as Sabians, it's not just, okay, do what you want. There's still consequences to life, all right. So you're still in someone else's brand, right? You have Joseph Franklin Rothbard, all right. He goes back to, let's see, which school of thought, Jehovah's Witnesses, all right. And then you can see how things branched out from him. So for example, Jehovah's Witness, which emerged from the Bible student movement founded by Russell, all right, and doctrines which shape the current beliefs and practices of Jehovah's Witness today, and in 1918 held a Millions campaign with the release of his new book entitled Millions Now Living Will Never Die, all right, which later influenced the Millions campaign, all right, which later influenced the Millions Man March, all right. So it'd be a good idea to read that book, Millions Man March, which we know was linked to Minister Louis Farrakhan, all right. So now you're starting to see the different brands, all right. They're going back to the same family of things, the same course of action, all right, how they're all connected, all right. Joseph Smith, all right, Joseph Smith, that's the Book of Mormons, all right, which he was made it very clear on the Mormons that black people is the result of a curse, of a curse, all right. And then you have Billy Graham. Billy Graham, he said, no, actually, it's white people who's the result of the curse. Because Billy Graham, he was the most broadcast evangelist, all right? Broadcast in more than 185 countries. So he had to reflavor it. So all the different flavors, the different attitudes, the different opinions, all right? You realize it's still just one family of thought, all right? So let's fast forward. So you can see that, and then you can also see that happen in the extraterrestrial side. So that was just a little review. All right, so let's go back. as we were breaking down the politics in the skies too. Okay, 42. All right. So let's see, where do we want to start? All right. Now, let's start on page 42 on 348. And they had conflicts between the gods for the lands and the Hamad Nadu humanoids they rule and who serve them as their own, one Gadad or Gadatat, god or goddess. All right. So you have these different extraterrestrials, they're fighting amongst themselves. And it's like, no, this is my jurisdiction, this is my people. And I'm trying, it's like turf wars. All right. And I want more jurisdiction over these people. I'm your one God because I'm jealous and I don't want you dealing with these other extraterrestrials. All right. And you see there was males doing that and females doing that, extraterrestrials. All right. So this is his story, or better, his story. All right. Not our story. Pa Nagar Nadu Salau, the Negro race. And these are the Rananats names of those now found in the Torah Bible before it was changed to Hebrew from Sumerian stone tablets. 351, Adam and his consort Titi, or Tit, and their son Abel was killed by Cain. Their son Abel was killed by Cain, son of Titi and Nanar. All right. So now you see how Titi had two baby daddies. All right. Adam and Titi. That was that's Abel's lineage right there. And then Titi and Nanar, which is the grandson of Enki. That is the father of Cain. All right. So son of Titi and Nanar, Cain, called Yahweh, and also Adam and Titi, then birthed Seth and his consort, Azuru, that's also known as Maya. And then Enshi, or Enos, and his consort, Noam, and Enkim, or known as Enoch, and his consort, Indina, and Zustria, known as Noah, and his consort as Amzara, and Torhu, or known as Teru, and his multi-consorts. All right. So we already learned that Terah was a very aggressive man, and he was mixed with all kinds of things in a very aggressive nature. And he was also a rapist, that he raped not just the women of his tribe, but also many, many other tribes all around. All right. And had many children. All right. So one birthed a son, Abram. Another, who was Anuna, birthed a Sawat's daughter called Sarah. All right. Or Sarah. Abraham also had other consorts known as Hakat, or known as Hagar, mother of Ismailu, or known as also Ishmael, father of Kedar and Sarah, or Saroi. All right, that's Sarah. Birth Isaac, also known as Isaac, father of Yitzhak, known as also Esau, and his twin Yaakov, known as Jacob. Yitzhak, also known as Esau, had many consorts, and his Saabu tribes were the Edomites. All right, so that's a specific branch of the Adamites. All right, so now Bob is letting you know how to recognize, despite the many name changes, whether it's the Edomites or Ishmaelites or whoever. All right, that is just another branch of the Adamite family. That's all the same tree. All right. So 354. Yaqub had four consorts, and his Sha'abu tribes were Israelu, or the Israelites. From one was named Yehuda, or Judah. Another was named Lawi, or Levi, or Levi. And from these two, by his mother at age 12, married. And his Katato, physical father, all right? So that was his mother. By the time she was 12, she had given birth to both of those sons, all right? And was born on April 17th, 6 BCE. Sananda, called the Savior, Yeshua, the Messiah of the Adamites, Moisar family. All right. So that's their Messiah. All right. So now you don't have to be confused if you see somebody else being Messiah or called anointed one. All right. That's their anointed one for them. All right. So, and this Messiah, Sananda, called Jesus the Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, born of a Levite, Modad Tat, mother Mary, and a Judahite, Modad, father Yusuf. All right. So even if they're a Levite or a Judahite, they're still distant cousins. They're still relatives, still the same family tree. Raised and taught in Taha Maye Reye Tamaray, where he first encountered the Maratu women, who was to become his consort Mary of Magdala in the land of Cush, Ethiopia, and she gave birth to their son called Simeon, called Bar Yeshua, or son of Jesus, and a Sawatat's daughter called Sarah Bat Mari, Sarah, daughter of Mary. All right. So you see them also mixing in with us. All right. So you saw them mixing in with us as Anunnaki, and you also see them mixing us as Adamites. All right. So that's how they're tying into our family tree. So, and those of Mosesism look for the Mashiach. Those of Christian look for the return of the Messiah. And those in Mohammedanism look for the return of the Masih, all the same being or person. And he returned on August 12, 2000 AD, and raptured 144,000 as an offering to his father El or Enlil, and he is Nanar, and birth, and he is Nanar, the bright morning Sabbath star, son of dawn, called Halal Lucifer, or Lu of the cycle, all right, which is talked about in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12. All right. So Baabaa explained that of 2000, their what is it called? Their time expired. All right. So now the Adamites are going back to just being used for food, and those in the Adamite image being those who carry the mark of the beast or the mentality of the beast. All right. So the mark of the beast, meaning your genetic markers, a lot of us, we're mixed with Adamite. It does affect us spiritually, mentally, you know, so much more. And that's why we have so many things to tune us up to pull us out of that. And then also those of us who live under their image. All right, 144,000. As Baabaa has said in an old update, the update has to at least be eight years old. But he said that in Trump's second presidency, that he has been tasked to build the altar to Nanar. All right. The altar to Nanar, you learn that altars are nothing more than offering stations. All right. Or the temple of Nanar, the temple of Nanar. All right. So that is a big altar. And what do they like to put on their altars? They tell you right in their own Bible, they like to put flesh on their altars. All right. We also have altars, but we don't put flesh on our altars. We don't even put food on our altars. We put things of respect and value. So we can have an altar and we put things that help create a nice environment to put us in a certain state. You put a picture of, let's say, your grandmother, somebody you really respected, and you tap into the wisdom that they have. And your sacrifice that you make is not some type of flesh or water or their favorite food. They don't need that, right? Your sacrifice is your immediate gratifications, all right? Because a lot of times, if you sacrifice your immediate gratifications, and because you think about the bigger picture, a lot of times that's not easy, all right? So this is the outcome you want. So it's wise to, you know what? I'm not going to do that. That's going to just validate this moment, all right? I'm going to think about the bigger picture. So that's what you sacrifice, all right? And what they want from you in return is just your love and respect, not your fear, all right? Because people who just do the right thing just because they're scared, it's still their nature to do the wrong thing. When you do the right thing because you're really transformed, all right? That's really how you become one of them, all right? So there by theirs, all right? So let's go back. He returned in August, talking about their Messiah, all right? 359. And he returned on August 12th, 2000 AD, raptured, all right? Hear the word raptor as well, and what a raptor is do. They're predators. So raptured 144,000 as an offering to his father El or Enlil, and he is Nanar, the bright and morning Sabbat star, son of the dawn, called Halal or Lucifer, Lu, of the cycle. In Isaiah chapter 14:12, they are by theirs. I mean the Qaqas-Hu, the Caucasoids, anoints cherub or Messiah, is not the same as our own. Their king of kingsmen, their overlord of Lord, and their king of kings, the Vikings, the six kings, Lord of the house of the Lord Britain, the blue-blooded Mutnanu reptilians, and the red-blooded Mukmahu, Palladians, vampires, and werewolves. All right. So now you see that even in politics, all right, you have two branches. You got the blue branch and you have the red branch. All right. Democrats and Republicans. All right. You have blue blood and red blood. So you see why they wear the blue and where they wear the red. All right. One is the Draconians and one is the, what is it called? The Palladians. All right. You have your Satanists and you have your Luciferians. All right. And they're not really together, but they work together at times. So your Satanists, that sounds like that will fall under the Draconians. And your Luciferians will fall under the Palladians. All right. So you just hear. We'll break that down more. All right. And I'm kind of referring back to older scrolls, such as Leviathan 666, that explains some of what I'm saying. All right. That's where I got that, linking it to. All right. So Jasad, flesh eating, the mom, blood drinking, Muzyad, Mutatalu, extraterrestrial deities, Anuna, you see as Moyad, bird headed gods who came to Mata earth. All right, Anuna is the bird-headed gods. So if you look at some Sumerian art, you see they're bird-headed gods. All right, birds of prey. And I seen birds that prey, they're very vicious. I seen it. I seen I don't know what kind of bird it was. Maybe it was a hawk. It was a big bird. I was like, wow. And it was holding a rat. And I was like, wow. I was amazed to see that. I saw it twice in my life. And if you kind of scroll on my pictures, you'll see where I saw it the second time. I took that picture. It was in a children's playground. And I saw, when I looked up on the swing, there was a bird and it had the rat in its hanging. So if you look at the pictures on my Telegram. All right. So that's what they are. All right. Just saw it. Flesh eating the mom, blood drinking, muzyad mutatalu extraterrestrials. All right. You got vampires and werewolves. All right. Feeding off the life force, drinking the blood, the energy, extracting what they need. Different beings feed off of different parts of the being. Some like the meat, the actual meat. Some they just want the blood. All right. Some they want certain components in the blood. All right. So their return is described as birds of the Hayat air, as also they ride upon horses, which is in fact their Baghdad's crafts, spoken of as symbolism, called the glory of the Lord, or the will within a will, 30 by 15 feet, flying roes, wings of cherub, and angels on horses, Barak, crystal city, chariots coming down, in Revelations chapter 21, and Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 16, Zechariah chapter 6 verses 1 through 7, Zechariah chapter 5 verses 1 through 4. All right, their crystal city. All right, so now you know, as we read in our other scroll, Freaks in the Perfect Creature. All right, we learned about the power of crystals, that your muscles itself is made up of crystals, the elastin fibers, the elastins, crystals, also inside the bone marrow, crystals, all right, and amplified signals, all right. So you have a crystal city, all right. So a lot of the time you can see, just because it was a crystal city, oh, this is great, doesn't mean it was a great thing for you, all right. Just because somebody comprehends a certain technology doesn't make them a good being, all right. So you see that there's biological crystals that amplify, receive, conduct energy, send messages, and also can what is it called? Project holograms. All right. Same way I got this big crystal right here, quartz crystal. All right. For the same reason why I chant around it. All right. Doesn't mean I be a good or bad being. Just because I know that technology doesn't mean anything. All right. So you have various uses. So let's continue. All right. So I'm just showing how deep the spell is. All right. So you have their Messiah coming from these flying chariots, even depicted in crystal cities. All right. All these are how the ancients described flying crafts with Muzyad Mutatalu, extraterrestrial Mukwanu beings in them, bird people, sky people. They have been coming and going for thousands of shamutats, years, described in many ways in many katabat cultures around the Tapal world, even as dragons, thunderbirds, and you see deities as humans with wings or the faces of birds. All right. Our tone wavelength A, we go back to the Tahites. All right. Which Baba says those are the perfect beings. That was us in our perfect state. All right. Before the things happened to the genetics. Now I'm a tall woman. I'm much taller than 4'5". All right. That's the ideal on this planet for this coordinate. Being a woman 4'5", not a midget, but being a woman 4'5" at the exact dimensions, at the exact size, that's acclimated perfectly, all right, to resonate on the frequency of planet Earth. For the man is 5'4", All right. And that's the way that the Tahites naturally were. Even the way their nose, how their nose looked, where their ears were located, it's perfect resonance. All right. For us, that's why we chant, because we need to constantly be tuning ourselves up. All right. And then you have other beings that are like 7 foot tall, 9 foot tall, different things happening. And everybody on this planet had to go through the Tahites. All right. Even when as we learn in melanin and the supreme race, I forgot how I got that actual fact, but we read that together. And that scroll, it talked about how Caucasians are put together and what's in their DNA. So for the Adamites, they're made up of pig, dog, monkey or simian, and then also they're made up of Palladian, Draconian, and then also Tahite, sans DNA. All right. And Baabaa says in that order. All right. So, and then also the reason why I was bringing that up is because in our tone wavelength, Baabaa draws, I forgot what he calls that. It looks like this. And he says, notice it's a tuning fork. It looks like this. Something like that. I drew it like that. He said, it looks something like that. And that's a tuning fork, but notice that it's interchangeably, you can see the body in it, the human body. And not just that, it's also a craft. It's a kabad, a craft. So the human body itself is a craft, and we know that the human body is a crystal, all right? And that we need to have all of our minerals and everything restored, and all of our transitional metals restored, because we know that we will learn about in the Makuzet, which is that elixir of life, that golden blood, which a lot of us have lost. Some people may still have it. That has to be restored. All right. So you have semi-precious metals inside the blood. All right. Everything from palladium to rhodium to iridium to silver, gold, platinum, plutonium. Yeah. And there's 8. But in actuality, Baabaa says he never gives everything. I noticed that there's actually more. All right. Because we also learn about the power of copper in another scroll. But everything in balance. All right. So then you have you can transport. So the reality, the ones with the physical crafts, or should I say the artificial crafts, might be less advanced than the ones with the natural biological crafts. All right, where Baabaa takes us to. All right. But a lot of the time, because of the spell, it's like, no, I want the shiny nickel because it's shining. I don't want that dollar bill because you don't know the value of money yet because of your innocence. All right. You don't know how money is. All right. Or the science of it. And how NASA also uses Henrietta Lacks's DNA, which is a Black woman's DNA in space travel. I don't know how they use her DNA, but I just know that NASA uses hella technology. Hella technology is the stem cells from Henrietta Lacks. All right. Even the automobile industry uses the stem cells. How they use it, I don't know. All right. So 365. They have been coming and going for thousands of Shamutat years, described in many ways in many Hadabat cultures around the Tapal world, even as dragons, thunderbirds, and you see deities as humans with wings or the faces of birds. And Zechariah chapter 6, verses 1 through 7 reads, and I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from between two mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass. In the first chariot were red horses, in the second chariot black horses, in the third chariot white horses, in the fourth chariot grizzled or bay horses. All right, that's that type of horse with that pattern on it. All right, that's grizzled horses. Then I answered and said unto the angel that walked with me, what are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said unto me, these are the four spirits of the heavens, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. The black horse, which are therein, go forth unto the north country. The white horse go forth after him, and the grizzled go forth toward the south country. And the bay went forth and sought to go, and they might walk to and fro the earth. And he said, get ye hence, walk to and fro the earth. So they walked to and fro through the earth. All right. So you got these horses coming down from heaven, whatever that means, right? In Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 16 reads, the appearance of the wheels and their works was like that of the color of beryl, and they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as if there was a wheel in the middle of a wheel. All right. So seems like there was four, the appearance of wheels. All right. So you have four, and they have four that had likeness, and their appearance worked as if there was a wheel in the middle of the wheel. So it seemed like they were being moved or guided by some central nucleus. All right. So there's some central force controlling all four of those movements, a will within a will. So Zechariah chapter 5, verses 1 through 4. Then I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, what seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. All right, so it's a rectangular looking roll type of floating type of craft that they're seeing, which to them it just looks like a flying roll, right? Some type of roll floating in the sky. And then said unto me, this is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off, as on this side according to it. And everyone that sweareth shall be cut off, as on that side according to it. I will bring it forth, said the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name. And it shall remain in the midst of his house, and shall consume it with the timber thereof, and the stone thereof. All right, so some self-destructing entity is going to go into that, and whoever goes against this being to cause destruction in that house. All right, so the very timber, the house is going to start to collapse in on itself. All right, and the stones where it was made and the timber going to start to be being consumed. All right, so 366. So when their history, Sajalat's records in their own holy books describe the coming of their Messiah or anointed cherub, their Christ, you read it many ways as Yahweh rides the wings of cherubim, or Batu, angels coming in 20,000 chariots, or chariots, all right, 20,000 chariots, all right, or various crafts. So it's not just one pickup. All right, many visits and chariots. So Psalms 68:17, the chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels, the Lord is among them, as in Sinai, in the holy place. All right. So that's a mountain. All right. So Mount Sinai, that's where a lot of them went to go talk to their different gods and angels up in the mountains. All right. With thousands of Malachim, angelic Makwanu beings, to come to a great feast of Jasad Wudamam, flesh and blood. All right. That's their landing site. All right. Baba's trying to remove us. Baba has said another update. He said, I'm trying to get you guys, like, if only you guys knew what was coming, I'm trying to get you out the way. But you guys are still playing. If only you knew what was coming. All right. But you don't want to do the right thing because you're afraid either. It's just you see what you're up against and you see where you want to go. All right. And these are the decisions that we can make. You know, I don't want us to be afraid. All right. I want us to be more so serious. Be serious. All right. So 367. This is their Sajalat, records, as the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, in Revelations chapter 19, verses 16 through 19, coming with the host of birds of Anunnaki, symbols of Haman Nadu, humanoids with bird heads or mask, which reads, and he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beasts and the king of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. All right. So these different birds you see right here in Revelations, in the King James Version of the Bible, Revelations chapter 19, verses 16 through 19, that they are described as fowls or birds that's coming down to feast on the flesh of all these different people, free and slave people. All right. Great people, people in positions, all kinds of people, even their horses. But you see that some will make war against, all right, those that sat on the horse or those that's making that order. All right, so some of them probably won't go down without a fight, but they're coming to eat, make no doubt. All right. So 368, and they who worship the Dabat's beast will call out Halal, Halal, you Lucifer. All right. So think of how you say Halal, which is another name for the devil, and halal meat. All right. The bright one is Jah, Yah, alive, living, or hallelujah, or alleluia. Lucifer is alive. All right. So now you know what that means. Hallelujah. All right. Lucifer is alive. And it's recorded as Jazus, Zeus, all right? Jazus, all right? So you hear the Hebrew marriage with the Greeks for Jazus or Jesus. Yeshua, Isa, has sent my angel to give you this testimony for the assemblies, gatherings. I am the root genes of the seed of David, the Judahites, and the bright morning star Whoever is thirsty, let him come. In Revelations chapter 22, verses 16, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root of the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. How art you, Nephal, fallen from above, O Hallel, Lucifer, son of the morning. Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations. All right. So think about that. How this Lucifer was cut down to the ground, who went around and weakened the nations. All right. Which is essentially what happened on this planet, as you have them who went around mixing with all others. All right. And we're left picking up the pieces today. All right. They went in and got into everyone's blood. Worldwide, some more than others, but that was their job. All right. So this is their King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Ezekiel chapter 28, verses 14 through 17 reads, Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created till iniquity was found in thee. By the multitude of the merchandise they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God. I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stone of fire. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. All right. So it sounds like a being that lost touch with its purpose. All right. Living by its own vanity. All right. So that the wisdom was corrupted by thy brightness. All right. By one's own beauty. All right. The wisdom is lost. That's what this being is saying about its own creation. So thou art the anointed cherub. By the multitude, assembly, gathering of your merchandise, they have filled the midst of you with violence, and you have sinned. Therefore I will cast you as profane out of the mountain of Elohim, and I will destroy you, O covering cherub, from the middle of the Miskayat stones of Narad fire. Your heart was lifted up. All right. And look at how they're being addressed as merchandise. All right. Things to be owned. All right. And used for commerce. Because of your nafar beauty, you have corrupted your hakamdom, wisdom, by reason of our brightness. I will cast you to Makah Matah, planet Earth. You fulfilled not, neither was their place found any more above in Matah heaven. And you, the great Draconians, was cast out. You, that old reptilian called devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. You were cast out into Matah earth, and your angelic beings were cast out with you. So woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, because the devil has Yatoy come down unto you having great wrath. Right? And we know that this devil knows his time is short, because he knows his time is short, it says in another verse. So now as you're reading this, it lets you know that the Draconians were cast out, and there's no space. So they wreaked havoc from wherever they're from. All right. Then they come here, wreaking more havoc, just like their beings. All right. They're creatures here. And then you have Elon Musk, all right, trying to get off this planet, trying to go to Mars. He said we could go colonize Mars. That's what his big thing is. That's why Trump also worked with what's his name? With Elon Musk, all right? But you see, they don't really get along that well. And in all actuality, every time they want to get off this planet, they're having a hard time. All right. There was another rocket ship. I forgot when it was. It was sometime in 2024. It went out into the atmosphere and it just exploded. All right. So they're trapped here. Think about it. In 1960, with a little bit of grainy technology, they were able to go onto the moon. So they say they can't make it to the moon in 2025. All right. So Revelations chapter 12, verses 7 through 12 reads, "And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, and he was cast out into the earth. And his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives until death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." All right. So looks like these draconians came down to earth, escaping something where they have no more. There's nothing else found for them anywhere else. So they come here, and now they trapped here. And it's like, you know what? Let's take as many of them out with us as possible. Especially, all right, seeds that are not their own. All right. That's why Bible said get away from them, because they're dangerous right now. Because Pa Mudwawu, the devil, and his Mukashu people know they only have a short Wakut time left of their 6,000 Shamut year dominion. Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 to 27 reads, "And God said, Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female he created he them." All right. So why would any God or extraterrestrial want to create a being that has dominion over the other creatures? All right. And why not create a being that is in harmony with all the other creatures? Because you know that your time is short. So that is really what you're hearing, is you're hearing a colonization. All right. So these beings sound like they were going around and trying to colonize. All right. And they came here for that purpose. All right. So it makes sense why they said, let us make man in our image and our likeness, and let them have dominion. All right. And the same way that they do in the slave trade. All right. Or wherever they're going to take over other people, they mix in with the people. All right. This is not because, oh, these people are so irresistible. No, it's a weapon of warfare. So what they do is that they go and they mix in with these people to have a hybrid child, so that the hybrid child could keep the rest of them in check. All right. Or a mixed child. They did that in Ghana. They did that in the Philippines. They did that all over where they go in to take other people. And uh, and they said, let us make a child after our image. All right. So they go take someone, impregnate them. The child comes out mixed, and they take that child, and the child has some of the genetics, and now they're going to also indoctrinate the child. All right, to keep their system going on behalf of them in their absence. All right, and then also with their hope. All right, so that's what colonialism looks like. All right, so they will still claim, while being destroyed, I am God. Yet you shall be a mortal man and not a spiritual God in the hand of him that destroy you. In Ezekiel chapter 28, this is their Christ, their cherub of the cherubim, the God of the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, bloodlusting Mukwanu beings, flesh-eating God, as Abraham did prepare flesh for God to eat with him, and Mukbatwi, that's two angels, 374. So the God deity and Mukbatu, angels in their Bible and Quran, by whichever Renan name, ate flesh. All right. So many places you go to see, you see them eating flesh. Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 through 8 reads, and the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself towards the ground and said, my Lord, if now I have found favor in thy eyes, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, and I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servants. All right, so let's just break down what this Shakespearean English is saying. All right, so when the Lord appeared directly to Abraham in the plains of Mamre, because they put a capital O. And then he lifted and he saw 3 men stood by him. So the Lord, and then you see 2 other beings. So let's just call them angels. And then he's like, oh, don't leave before I give you something to eat. Come relax, sit by the tree. I'm going to get you some bread. For therefore are ye come to your servant. It says, because that's why you came to your servant, right? To eat. All right. So, verse 6, we'll continue. And they said, so do as thou hast said. All right. So do what you say you're going to do. All right. Yeah. That's why you came. You came to eat. They say, yeah, do what you say you're going to do then. All right. So they sat and waited. So do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened. Hasten means go very fast. He hastened into the tent unto Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal needed, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it unto a young man. And he hastened to dress it. All right. Did it very fast to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. All right. So it has nothing said about cooking it. He dressed the bird. I mean, not the bird. He dressed the calf, I'm going to say. He went and slaughtered the calf real fast. He did that real quick. He dressed it, so he seasoned it up. All right. And you can go get meat tartare anytime. Right. I was doing a virtual tour through Ethiopia, for example. And you have so many people who eat raw meat there. You have a big like vegetarian community. You have big meat eating community. Then you have people like the butchers are crazy. Ethiopian butcher, and you just see them take the meat, slither it right off the animal, and they just eat it right there. And um, and then you have people somewhere in the middle that they usually eat vegetables, but during special seasons, special events, that's when they eat their meat meals. All right. But you have some beings over there that they just eat meat and it's raw. All right. So he took butter, so they sat and they ate the raw meat. So as they came to eat and they were served, and then they can go about their way in peace. All right. Because Abraham doesn't want no problems. All right. So 375. When you read with a clear akal mind to see the facts, not by blind faith, you will see the sawab truth. The bright morning star, Venus, aligned with Makma, Sabat, Saddam. That's the Pleiades. That's the Pleiades star system. All right. So you see Sabat means star as well. Sabat is also the Sirius star system. All right. So Sabat. All right. That's the Makma. That's Pleiades. Sabat is star in the Jam system. So that's when Venus and Pleiades aligned in 2012 AD. And it is recorded in their Bible after this that the fallen is fallen from the great city country, the new Babylon of Sakam power, and Wahu, Wanut, 1 hour. Your doom has come. All right. Because I do remember Baba talking about them getting an extension, because their time officially ended in 2000 to 2003. And I do remember some talk of them getting an extension for 10-year extension. But I think officially that was it, 2012, with that alignment with Venus. All right. There's something energetically. All right. I don't have all the science on it. We could back pocket it. All right. But you know, when you have certain alignments, you have certain energies that can either intensify or weaken a certain type of frequency. All right. So something happened with that alignment that Baba said is that within that hour, the doom has come. All right. 378. 1 Wanut hour is symbolic of 60 years, 2 half hour. Rakutat's times of 30 years each. All right. So from 1970 AD was the first half hour. That's the first half hour is 30 years until the year 2000. Then you have the second resurrection. The second half hour, 30 years to 2030. All right. So the resurrection happened after the year 2000, second half hour, what Baba really came to teach. All right. So all the people that's bragging about what they were doing before 2000, he was just giving you what you wanted. That's why he said everybody has to get to know him, because you never knew him. He was to you what you wanted. All right. So I remember him saying you got to get to know him all over again. All right. So that's the second half hour of the resurrection, because you're really getting to know yourself, your true self. That's why the Black Book starts with a question. It starts with, so who are you? He said, before I could tell you about who I am, I got to tell you about who you are. All right. So you have the man of the hour. So you see Baba is the man of the hour. All right. The whole 60, that's what they mean by the man of the hour. So now we know. So 380. The second resurrection, the second half hour, 30 years to 2030 AD. And it read after this in Revelations 19, I heard what sounded like a roar of the great assembly gathering, a multitude in the Patat sky, above shouting, Lucifer is alive, or hallelujah, Yahweh lives. Hallelujah or hallelujah, the torchbearer is alive. Salvation and glory and succumb power belongs to our God, for true and just are his judgments. He has condemned the great Muharrat, Mahartats, that's the prostitute, harlot for her lustful ways, who, by your pornography, has corrupted the earth by her open sex life, for all vulgarity and moral ways, obscene lifestyle, smut, lewdness, that new Babylon has offered and spread. All right. So think about Levy. Think about snake. And think about genetic lines, genetic links. All right. So going around and polluting the genetics. All right. And because of ignorance of the races, you know, and a free and open sex, that was a way for, all right, for this diseased DNA, all right, to spread more. So now we know the sacred feminine. It's about the sacred genetics as the record keepers. So that's how they get into the records of all others. So you see, it's a great, it's a horrible thing, all right, for what that represents. Of that open. So it's not just about judging like, oh, woman, you know, you should just be quiet and all cover it up and modest. No, you know the power of what you're carrying. All right. Because you're setting the tone for what's to come. All right. Because you have the power to turn off and turn on certain things within the creation that comes by way of you. All right. So let's read that again. He has avenged on this new Babylon for her Nahes evil, wicked Hadab culture and her wars and killings and murders of his servants, slave. And again, they shall Lucifer's alive. Hallelujah. The smoke from her fires goes up forever and ever. The 24 elders and the 4 creatures prostrate and worship God, who is seated on the throne. And they cried, so be it, Lucifer is alive. Halal, Uya, all right? So, hallelujah, all right? So you hear halal, U and Ja, all right? Halal, U, Ja. Halal, Uja, all right? Hallelujah, all right? We say phrases we don't even know. We don't speak the language. What does hallelujah? What does hallelujah mean? We hear it in church. Hallelujah. And I'm like, what does that mean? Al Shaddai, Al Shaddai. Why are you saying that? I don't know. It's just a nice church thing to do. So you can ask the average Christian who shout these phrases, and you ask why they say it, and they just say it just means praise the Lord. All right. So halal uja, all right. Revelations chapter 19. All right. Verses. So we're going to read the whole chapter of Revelations 19. And after these things, I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Alleluia, salvation and glory and honor and power to the Lord our God. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he hath judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornications, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. And again they said, Alleluia. And her smoke rose up forever and ever. And the 24 elders and the 4 beasts fell down and worshipped God that sat on the throne, saying, Amen, Alleluia. And a great voice came out of the throne, saying, Praise our God, all ye his servant, and ye that fear him, both small and great. And I heard, as it were, the voice of the great multitude, and the voice of many waters, and a voice of mighty thunderings, saying, Alleluia, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. All right. So you hear the voice of many waters. Now you know it means a great multitude. A voice of many waters means you're speaking on behalf of many. All right, many waters, because you know that the human body itself is mostly water. That's all the tone vibrations. We learn about that in the breath book. All right. Conduits. All right. So the voice of many waters reminds me of like writing the scroll of eyes. That Baba has the voice of many waters. All right. Because why? He's setting the whole record straight. All right. So the voice of the great multitude. All right. So, and I heard as were the voice of the great multitude and the voice of many waters, and as a voice of mighty thundering, saying, Alleluia, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. And he said unto me, Blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. All right. So they love food. I'll just tell you. So now when that marriage is gonna happen, you're gonna have some beings that's gonna be invited to come and eat and feast. All right. With this union. All right. And he said unto me, or he saith unto me, these are the true sayings of God. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servants and of thy brethren that have a testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of the prophecy. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called the faithful and true. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire. And on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood. All right, so his blood, he had the blood of Christ on him. All right, so he was anointed. So now you see why they called him Messiah. Anointed with blood. All right. So he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood. And his name was called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he ruled them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winespread, and he treadeth the winepress of the furnace and the wrath of Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowl that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses. All right, think about it. What did the horses do? If this is a judgment, what did the horses do? All right, and of them that sit on them. All right, and the flesh of all men, both free and bound, both small and great. All right. So why are you eating the bound people? What did they do? Why don't you just go liberate them? No, go eat them all. All right. Both small and great. And I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophets that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceiveth them that had received the mark of the beast and that had worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. All right. So the deceptive, the ones who empower themselves with sorcery. All right. Sorcery is no more than being an illusionist. All right. The illusions, they were all put into the fire or into that pot, so to speak, onto the altar. They were all eaten. And the remnants were slain with the sword of him, and that sat upon the house, which sword proceedeth out his mouth. And the fowls were filled with their flesh. All right. So these beings are eating, and they're eating good. And that's in the King James Version. All right. So the man came from the Mirage throne saying, Hallel is Yahweh, or Hallelujah. All you his servant, Lulu, Amalu, all right, means primitive worker. Adamites, you who fear him, both small and great, rich and poor. Then I heard what sounded like a great assembly gathering, multitude like a roar of rushing water, and like a loud thundering, shouting, Lucifer is alive. 386, for our Nanar, Lord God, El Shaddai rules. Let us rejoice and be glad and give him glory, for the wedding of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. For the bride of the Qaqas-Hu Christians, the wedding is the feast. All right. Baabaa is explaining himself what's going on here. All right. Fine linen, bright and clean, was given her to wear, dressed in white robes. In John chapter 4, verses 35. Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look at the fields, for they are white already to harvest. Then the cherub said to me, record, Tawuba, blessed are those who are invited to the wedding feast of the Lamb. And he added, these are the true Matatats words of the sky. All right. From that little quote here, for they are white already to harvest, it's making me think about us in general, because so many of us have been wanting to mix or be accepted, that we've been mixing and mixing and mixing to the point where we lose our connection. So it's like, okay, they were already white, but they want to eat all the flesh. So it looks like their harvest, as Baabaa said, it took them 400 years over here in the West to perfect us, to get us to this state of Negro, of hate of self and kind, with their genetics, their mentality, etc., etc. And some of us even look like them, talk like them, smell like them. All right. So it just reminds me of getting the people seasoned. So it's like, and you look like, oh, look, now they're white. All right. They're ready for harvest. All right. So that's also the importance of knowing who and what you are. All right. And what you're being invited to. You want to be accepted into a club where they eat the club members. All right. 388. Then the cherub said to me, record, Tawuba, blessed are those who are invited to the wedding feast of the Lamb. And he added, these are the true Matatats words of God. I saw the Patat sky above open, and I saw a white horse shining, a shining craft. I saw a white horse, a shining craft, a glory of the Lord, Kabod, and its rider is called faithful and true with justice. He judges and makes war. All right. So any type of craft that's taking you from one place to another can be called a kabad. Including the body itself is a craft. All right. And some of us can travel with our crafts. Some of us may not. All right. Bible is pointing that out in 2 scrolls, Our Tone Wavelength A, and then also Mafkuza Elixir Life. All right. He makes that connection to the human body being a craft. And some beings' crafts are trapped, and some beings' crafts are not. His ayantwi eyes are like bright shining narar fire, and his head are many crowns. Oh, one thing Bible also says is that 2033 in that scroll, and in different scrolls you'll see different years. It's not pinpointed, but you have 2033, 2030, 2030 something. In some scrolls you have 2040 and 2043. But let's just say by Mafkuzelix Life, it says I think 2033 being the last pickup. All right. He says, will you be picked up or would you be left behind? And he talks about your body being a craft itself. And so now you realize that many people are standing looking outside for some craft to come get them. When more than likely, if a craft is coming to get you, they're probably coming to eat. Rather than taking time to perfect your craft so you can make it. All right. That's what I'm seeing, because you have all kinds of beings that come with their artificial crafts. Then you have biological crafts that some people can perfect their crafts to the point that they can interdimensionally travel. Some beings can't. They might need assistance of roots and all types of things, different things. All right. So when Baba says, will you be ready? I'm just thinking how many of us neglect our craft, our biological craft, and we're looking for some artificial craft, like help us. All right. Something to consider. All right. So his Ayansui, we're on 390, page 5. His Ayansui eyes are like bright, shining narar fire, and his head are many crowns. He rules many countries. He has a title inscribed on his uniform that no one knows, a Lahaj language that Mukasu people on Mata earth cannot recognize. Only he knows what it says, and his uniform is covered in human Dama blood. And his title is Logos, or Lu Ghost. 392. He had a heavenly host of angelic Mukwanu beings following him, riding shining bright Mukbadat crafts. Mukbadat crafts, also in uniform, white and clean without the blood stains on it. All right, so he had white uniform stained up with blood, and then he had some angelic beings following him with clean uniforms. That means they had no blood stains on it. As of yet, Baba says. All right. So they're following behind with clean linens. That means they're traveling hungry. All right. He says, as of yet. 392. Then a sharp snake-like tongue, looking like a sword, came out of his Ramah mouth, with which he is to strike down the Mukasu people. He will rule them with an iron rod by force. He crushes them like crushed grapes, for its juice to get their blood. As for the fury of the wrath of El Shaddai, Nanar, son of Enlil, and Ninlil, master of Patatat, skies above. All right. So I think that I made a mistake earlier in the scroll when I said Nanar was Enki's grandson. I had to go back and read the bloodline again. All right. We just had to go over it again. All right. So 395. He has on his uniform at his thigh. He has the title inscribed King of Kings, Lord of Lords, ruler of his kind, master of his kind, or those fashioned made in his Shabbat image, after his Shabbatness, likeness. All right. So he's master, ruler of rulers of his kind. All right. And then I saw a cherub standing in the light of the sun who cried out loud to all the birds flying in chariot and crafts, chariots of Narad, fire, flying in the atmosphere of the Patatat, skies. I toy means to come, gather together the rules, the leaders, and the men of Sakam power, of horses, crafts, and those who fly on them, to the feast of Elohim, Manuna, Anakim, gods, the great supper. All right. So whatever type of craft, if you're in a car, that's considered a craft. If you're on a plane, that's a craft. If you're on a submarine, that's a craft. All right. If you're on a spaceship, that's a craft. All right. So gather the leaders, the men of power, of horses, the crafts, and those who fly them to the feast of Elohim, Anuna, God, the great supper, so that you may eat the basar flesh of rulers, leaders, and most power men. As recorded in the ancient record of Jubilee, their gods eat basar flesh after the birth of Murnashu Inosites by the Nephalu, Nephilim, Pholim, Mukbatu angels. It says lawlessness increased on Pa Matah, the earth, and all Jasad flesh corrupted its way. Alike, Munashu Inosites, cattle, and beasts, and birds, and everything that walks on the Matah earth. All of them corrupted their ways and their orders, and they began to eat each other. And lawlessness was increased on the Matah earth, and every imagination of the Fakarat thoughts of all the Munashu Inosites was thus Nahes evil continually. All right. So we're hearing very clearly a disruption of the ecosystem, because each creature is meant to behave and do a certain thing. They're not just meant to eat and just do anything. All right. So for example, I mean, sharks nowadays, they're eating human, but for the most part, sharks don't really eat humans. They're starting to now, for example, because that's not really, they have its taste, all right, what it eats. Or there's a natural ecology, all right? So when everything started to get corrupted, everything is on a menu for everything else. All right. That's going to be a very messed up ecology. So their own Sajalat's records, their own his story, the Jubilee. All right. It's recorded in Jubilee chapter 5, verses 1 to 10. This is their Kadar fate as recorded in their own Sajalat's records. All right. So it's talking about what's to become of them. All right. In First Enoch chapter 7, verses 1 through 14. All right. It doesn't have to become your fate. All right. Because you have a different set of overseers. All right. With a very different nature. All right. Your overseers are Pa Nataru, natural nature. All right. Now, granted, different traumas happen along the way, and that's why you go back to who you are. Can you remember? All right. Bible say you have to be a member of Ray. And then he said, you hear the word remember. All right. You had Enocytes, the forgetful ones, the ones who are cut off. All right. So they have their own. All right. And yes, granted, our stories overlap, but you see how that happened. That's why we are being redeemed. All right. As a people. And some of us with too much Anunnaki genes, they're coming here to eat too. They come to this information and this doctrine because they come here to feed. And then you have some people who are just followers by their nature. It's in their genetics. It has to do with, in designer genes and Master Secret Baba, it talks about the genes, what people are programmed to do. I forgot what the genetic is. It is Duffy. I forgot which gene. You could go back in that scroll. That accounts for artists, like people who they just have to draw, they just have to sing. It accounts for people who are just very, very like sexually. It's all programmed in their DNA. It's a genetic program. And some people, they've been programmed to be followers. You know, it's like there's nothing. They're always looking for somebody to follow. All right. They're not looking to activate any divinity within themselves. So they're essentially food. All right. You have some people coming to eat. You have all types of different beings. All right. Baba says as he's waking up gods, he's waking up devils too. All right. Some of us somewhere in the middle. All right. Most of us somewhere in the middle, actually. And it's for us to redeem those genes that can be redeemed. That's what Baba's coming for. That's why he said that we need to breed these forces out of ourselves, and we need to stop mixing now and start cleaning ourselves up. Because if you were clean already, why would you need to clean yourself up? You'd be good. All right. So he always talks about cleaning yourself up because of what happened to us. So you have all these different records overlapping, but you have certain beings within your genetics, if you can make that connection in time, that they advocate for you. And that's where the Ashuk comes from. The fact that you can guess, you could catch a cold and heal, and you cannot be sick anymore. That is a testimony of Ashuk, the fact that you can heal from something. All right, that's a form of redemption right there. All right, so it's not easy, but that's what we're doing. All right, so all of them, we're reading. Can't multiply. So in Genesis chapter 6, all right, we're on 51, verse 4 or 5. This is their qadar, their fate, as recorded in their own sajalats, records. All right. And who are the women to us? They are the record keepers, because we're talking about genetic records. And it's up to the women what we're going to pass on in the next cycle. All right. We're determining that now. So now you see records. You have record keepers. All right. So those are their records. So interchangeably use the word genetics and also use epigenetics, all of the above. And then, so you see, that's by their genetics. All right. So we have Nataru in us, and a lot of their gifts are still within us. All right. So Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 5 reads, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always thrive with man, for he is also flesh, for his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of thought of his heart was only evil continually. All right. So these beings came, all right, through grafting and then also through having sex with these creatures, through having sex, producing wicked offspring, through grafting, producing wicked offspring. All right. Every imagination is wicked only continually. All right. So after this, I saw another cherub coming down from above. He had a great authority, and the earth was illumined by his splendor, illumined by his splendor. The bright shining one, Lucifer, Nana, El Shaddai, with a great voice, he shouted, "Fallen, fallen, Nephilim, fallen is the new Babylon the Great. She has become a trap for specters, ghouls, demons, devils, and is haunted by all kinds of Nahes, Tayef, evil ghosts of all kind of haunting unclean leper spirits, white orbs, 6 etheric Mukwanu beings, foul specters trapped on this dimension, lost their Ba'a soul, so they can't cross over to the next realm. Another scroll that's going to be very important for us to have is feeding the forces. All right, because Babylon the Great has become like a trap. All right, Bible say you can't stop the devil, you could only trap him, because the devil is an angel. So you trap him in his vibration or angle, in his angle or his dimension. All right. So that's the purpose of us clearing ourselves out as well, because a lot of us, we're trapped by our own lust. We're trapped by our own greed, our own attachments as well. So it's hard to walk away from this abusive relationship. All right. You're still begging for acceptance. You still, you know what, let me just smoke one more blunt. Let me just eat one more steak or whatever it is. You're not really ready to live in your own image, not in totality yet. It's because of all these, it's that devil genetics. All right. You're not really, it's trapping you. All right. So if you can, that's what Bible say, you got to exercise for your exorcism. All right. You have respire, dealing with the birth. I mean, the breath. You have perspire, dealing with sweating. Anybody who's ever detoxed from anything, you know that when you perspire, that helps you detox. All right, get it out your system. You burn it out. You have to burn out your desires so you can free yourself. That's what we're all fighting for in one way or another. All right. I was using food as an example, but so many things, because it's like you're addicted to, all right, what's being offered, what's trapping you in this dimension. All right. So let's read that again. Nephal is the new Babylon the Great. She has become a trap for specters, ghosts, demons, devils, and is haunted by all kinds of Nahes, Tayaf, evil ghosts, all kinds of haunting, unclean leper, spirits, white orbs, 6 etheric Mukwanu beings, foul specters trapped on this dimension, lost their Ba soul, so they can't cross over to the next realm. All right. You can have a soul and lose it too. All right. Because you have devils being mentioned. There's a lot of melanated devils. All right. So don't take your melanin and be so arrogant. All right. You should be, you have a right to be proud of yourself, but not to the point of arrogance to where you're not perfecting yourself. Because you see all this. All right. And all that is trapping. So you don't want to be the devil that gets trapped. All right. In Revelations 18, chapter 1 through 2 reads, "And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become an habitation of devils and behold every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. All right. How do we treat ourselves? Do you treat yourself like you love yourself? Do you treat each other like you love yourself? All right. It's a journey, right? It's a journey. It's not a judgment, because I'm sure I do certain things in my own way. Because we're all here together, because as far as I know, I'm not saying I know everything, but as far as I know, as of 2023, I don't think anyone made that pickup. All right. So that tells you everybody is working on something or another. All right. So I'm here along everybody, burning whatever desires I still have out as well. All right. So 406. This is the Kadar, the fates of the Qaqas-Hu Salau Caucasian race and their blind faiths. In extraterrestrials, they fakar thought were gods. All right. It's time for us to we need to burn that out. All right. That's their fate. So why are you following behind them? You don't have to have blind faith. Bible says you don't even have to have blind faith in him. He likes his students to ask him questions so that you don't mistake what he knows for what you know. Because it's like, I told you about it, but you didn't take time to know for yourself. All right. So take time to know rather than just being comfortable in a state of relief. All right. Sometimes you'll have to dedicate your time to study something a little bit more. All right. You hear about something, you may need to go and learn more about, let's say, how the heart works. You may need to learn more about how crystals come into creation. All right. In the different states. You may need to learn about how cells divide. All right. You may need to learn more about those things to grasp certain things you're learning. All right. And you learn better by asking questions. Certain things you might know, like, oh, that makes sense. I already know about that. Certain things you have no clue about. Never heard that before. All right. Are you just comfortable staying like that? All right. So their kadar, their fates. This is the fate of the Qaqas-Hu. All right. For their blind faiths and extraterrestrials, they fakad thoughts were gods. In their Adamite religions born in Persia, Mesopotamia, the influence of Zoroastrianism, also called Parsism, Matria became Mashiach to Masi, to Messiah. So Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are all of Iranians, Zoroastrianism. Aharu Mazda, that is the supreme Lord of Iran, the eternal, endowed with creative Sakam power, which he exercises by way of the medium of his splendor, Menu, the Holy Ghost, Spirit, in governing the Wahu Makwan universe by way of angels and archangels, by armored power. His adversary is Ariman. Their holy book is Avestan Vendidadi. All right. Avestan Vendidadi. Their Adam is called Mashia, and Eve is called Mashiana, who were Vara, enclosed in the blessed Yima. They had 3 sons called the 3 sons were called Arya, Samarima, and Tura. The Tapal world was destroyed, Dalu Wakutat, 3 times and refilled, and with the best Hamamu humans. This is the same as the Torah, the gospel and the Quran teaching only exists long before them. All right. So you see the same story recycled time and time again. All right. So Baba gave you an Iranian story with the Iranian gods, and that religion is older. Well, that story goes back older than the Bible. That story is older than the Quran. All right, it's older than the Torah. All right, yet the likeness and so much more is the same. For Ahura Mazda came down from above with winged craft, just as the Torah. If you don't check, they will fool you into thinking they are not the same, just different tongues of how they play with dates and Rakutat times, and even places to deceive you. I went and bought this other book. Let me see. I bought this book because I love Virginia Hamilton. She's one of my favorite writers for children's stories and such. And she wrote the People Could Fly. She wrote that, and that's a powerful book. I recommend people to read it. But in this book, she went around to different people throughout the planet, and she compiled various stories of various people's beginning stories. And you can see how some of them overlap. So through different cultures, she talks about the story that different cultures tell of their beginning. All right. So now Baba's saying that don't be fooled by these Adamite creators. All right. And the various forms that they take. For Ahura Mazda came down from above in a winged craft, just like as the Torah. And if you don't check, they will fool you into thinking they are not the same, just in different tongues, and how they play with dates and Rakutat's times, and even places to deceive you. Remember, he is the liar of all liars, his story. All right. So you're talking about even these Anunnaki are liars. All right. So their Qaqas-Hu stories all began with the coming of the Anunnaki and Sumer, who made them with the Mukmahu Pleiades, or the Pleiadians. Many attempts before they made a Rajal, man who could procreate, yet they filled the planet with many kinds of deformed Haman Nadu, humanoids, who now are born disfigured and deformed. All right. So you think of disfigurements as either incomplete genetics or disordered genetics. All right. Because your genetics tell your body what to do, what to become. All right. So some people, by their very genetics, it breeds disfigurement and deformities. And a lot of the times they had to take time to perfect the being that they made eventually. So you have the remnants throughout the planet. All right. And this is their story on defects in the first attempts at making a maror, a worker, a mu'bad, a slave, and muqaddam, a servant. 419, a group of female nurses led by Sawatat's daughters of Anu was sent down to planet Earth. All right, so women were sent down as well. All right, from these Anunnaki. Her title was Ninma, all right, mistress of might. Might lady, also known as Ninhursag, and her job on Mata Earth was that of a sud, or a nurse, one who assists or helps in Rakutat times of need. All right, so it lets you know if there's nurses that there's telling you that there's things that's being tended to, right, in times of need. She served as the Anunnaki's chief medical officer, and was destined to do great work for them. For 422. There was trouble between those who ruled the Anunnaki, who came to Mata Earth to work the gold mine. Pa Mata, the earth-based Anunnaki, their Sajalat's records, called the Atra Hassas epic, tell their stories. All right. So if you want to take time to go read that, you could read the Atra Hassas epic. All right. Read the epics of Gilgamesh. Read all these type of. You find the Baabaa translated many of it into the holy tablets. All right. You could go back and read the holy tablets as well. All right. And these records where Baabaa took them. All right, because Baabaa had taken the time to compile the records of things that we thought we wanted. All right. But he still managed to put jewels within them. All right. So there's still jewels. Because he said, I remember watching his class. He said sometimes when the person is so sick, you got to give them a little bit of the poison they're already used to with the medicine you try to feed them, because their body would just reject the medicine. All right. Or they just won't take the medicine at all. So you give them a little bit of what they want until they learn to want what you have to give. And that's why this book starts by saying that. He doesn't start saying that in the Paa Taraq. He said this truth is truth. But this is what he's saying here, all right, before in the first half hour. He said, I came giving you what you want, so you will learn to want what I have to give. All right? And it's not added to this book. This was printed way back. It's not even the latest. Because there was 3 versions of the Holy Tablets put up. So you see now what's going on, what we're unraveling ourselves from. All right. Continue your studies and researching that. If you're struggling to accept or to know, like that sounds a little far-fetched to me, or it's going against whatever I already believe. Whatever the case is. All right, you don't know what he's talking about. You don't know what Baaba's talking about. Stop believing Baabaa and go check it out. Go read the stories for yourself. All right. So there was trouble between those who ruled and the Anunnaki who came to Mata Earth to work the gold mine. Pa Mata, the earth-based Anunnaki, their Sajalat records called the Ashtra Hassas epic tell their story. It's of mutiny of the Anunnaki and those who refused to work the gold mines. The records say when the Anunnaki, like mortals, bore the work and suffered the toil of the Anunnaki was much too great. The work was too heavy and the distress was great amongst them. So these extraterrestrials, they're like, you know what? Why don't we just create another being? Let's scapegoat this burden to someone else, because we don't want to do it. All right. So the outcome that was to bring about change for the better was an accomplishment of Enki and Nimma. However, Enlil did not like the fact he was not able to be farehi or happy about it. 426, Muspatu Sabians, yet you see the Anunnaki miners toil deep in the mountains. They counted the Wakut time periods of their labors for 10 periods of work. For 10 periods, they worked very hard and suffered. And for 20 periods, they worked very hard and suffered. And for 30 periods, they worked very hard and they suffered and worked. And 40 periods, they suffered and worked very hard. 426. When the right Wakut's time came for the mutiny, was a time when Enlil came to visit the mines. One shouted to the other, Itoy, come on now. It's time to upset Enlil. Let's go to his dwelling. yelled the ringleader, who urged the angry miners to come. Let us proclaim mutiny. Let us become hostile and fight. It is recorded that Anunnaki headed his maratats, or heeded, all right? So it is recorded that the leader, the other Anunnaki, heeded his words, his maratats' words. And they set Narar fire to their tools and put flame to their matah earth cutters and fire to the grinders, throwing them away. Reminds me so much of the Boston Tea Party, of us who are familiar. And here in America, the settlers, they were tired of all the hard work that they were doing. So they was like, we're tired of the British taxing us. So we're going to say, no, we don't want to be taxed. So when, instead of giving the tea, when the British come for it, as soon as they come, we're going to throw the tea into the water. And that's the Boston Tea Party. So that happened in Boston. So all that got ruined. And that was their mutiny. Same story. All right. But this happened on between the Anunnaki. All right. So they were feeling like they were being abused. And they protested by burning up their tools. All right. And standing up for themselves. All right. So they set fire to their tools and put flame to their matah earth cutters and fire to the grinders, throwing them away. They went to the gate of the hero Enlil. It was late at night, and the mutineers reached the place where Enlil dwelled. This guard, the guard at the gate, was called Qaqas-Hu. He blocked up the gate and informed Enlil's side of Nusku. Enlil's aide, I meant to say. So he informed the aide of Enlil, called Nusku, who awakened Enlil, hearing the shouting of kill Enlil. It was incredulous and unbelievable. Enlil asked, is this against me that this is being done? 432. What is this I see with my own Ayantwi eyes? Through Nusku, he demanded to know, who is the instigator of this conflict? The mutineers responded by shouting, every one of us declares battle. 434, they said, our work is too much, and the distress is great. The excessive toil is killing many of us. When Enlil heard those Madatat's words, he began to cry. All right. Oh, and the Astra Hassis records. All right. Here's some remnants of it. All right. And these tablets, which Baabaa does read multiple ancient languages as well. But you can look up these books and read them. All right. As they've been translated into English. But yeah, let's continue. So the mutineers responded by shouting, every single one of us has declared battle. 434. They said, our work is too much and the distress is great. The excessive toil is killing many of us. 435. When Enlil heard those Madatat's words, he began to cry. Tears. Contacting his father Anu, he offered to resign his post on Matah earth and return to Nibiru, yet demanded that the instigator of the mutiny to be put to Mutwat death. Anu summoned the council, and they uncovered that the Anunnaki complaints were justified. Yet how could the much-needed gold supply mission be abandoned? All right. So now just think about that type of nature. The people are saying, oh, we're suffering. All right. And then Enlil cries, but he goes back and he says, okay, I'm going to leave, but make sure you kill that guy who went and woke up the rest of them. All right. When it shows that they were actually, what the people were complaining about was founded. All right. So what kind of unjust God have we been following for this long? When you go back and you read it, the Holy Tablets depicts the story too. But Bob was just telling it again. Even when you see in that nature, why you want to follow those type of beings? All right. Who show they're very selfish and self-serving. All right. So 436. Anu summoned the council. They uncovered the Anunnaki's complaints were justified, yet how could the much-needed gold supply mission be abandoned? It was then that Enki let his voice be heard, opened his Fama mouth, and addressed the Anuna, his own brethren, that there is a way out of this dilemma. Enki said, we have with us Ninma, a birth-giving female deity, a genealogist. So it is recorded. Let her fashion Lulu. Let an Amalu bear the toil for the Anunnaki. Let her make Lulu Amalu. Let him bear the yoke. All right. So it was Enki's idea in the first place. All right. So a lot of us like to say, oh, Enki's for us. Enki's not for us. And he's for the creation of the Adamites. Now, Enki came and mixed with us. So that is how he mixed with us directly without necessarily mixing through the Anunnaki. The Adamites. He mixed with us through the Adamites, but he also came directly because where he went. He went to South America. He went to Africa. All right. That doesn't mean that he's for you. It just means he mixed in with you. All right. 439. So it was suggested that they make a Hajan, a hybrid, a mixed Qaqas gene to take over the work of their own Shabbat image and after their own likeness. And when the other Anuna asked how such a Lulu Amalu could be made, Enki answered, the Mukyai creature we seen when we first landed for the genus Homo. All we need to do is bind our DNA with their DNA to make a Majan, a hybrid. The genus Homo to Homo erectus to Homo sapien. The Musnan Bush, the Sands Bushmen of Absu, South Africa, were living where the gold mines were. And all that was needed to upgrade their DNA and mix with our own. All right. So it was Enki's idea and said, let's go take the Sands people. All right. That's why Bible says the Adamites have pig, let's just say dog, or canine, which is like wolf, and what's the other one? And simian, or monkey. And then they also have Anunnaki, Palladian, Draconian, and no, Palladian's first. Palladian, Draconian, and then Anunnaki, and then Sands. And Bible says in that order, that is the DNA. So they're more animal than anything, but the reality is that they still have some Sands DNA in them, because the Anunnaki took some of the Sands people to create their new hybrid. So Lulu means a mixed one. Amalu. Lulu, Amalu means primitive worker. This is the humanid that Enki has seen at his headquarters in South Africa, and how much they resembled the Anunnaki. So akin genetically to the Anunnaki, that with some genetic alterations adding to the genome of the humanid, Homo erectus, and some Anunnaki genes to the Homo sapien, it is possible because of DNA on Matar Earth was that of the Muzyad Mutatalu extraterrestrials. both having 46 Wu-sabat chromosomes. Inky explained to the leader how easy it would be to get it done with the help of Ninma and her biomedical expertise. So they were listening, and those who control destiny said out loud, yes, it can be done. All right. So now, just to go back to things I'm thinking about in my back pocket, which I said we should pocket because we need more information. What kind of genetics did the Anunnaki have? All right. Where are the origins? Because we know that the Nibiru is a big craft. All right. Well, what planet does Anunnaki originate from? And we know that Enki was mixed before he got down here. So what do the beings look like on the craft? What race are they? All these questions, are they one race? Obviously not, because Enki could be mixed with something else. How many races are in the Nibiru? I don't know. All right. So this is something to think about. But we do know that Draconians, the ones from Draco, they're 9 feet tall because they have a very clear description. And they are pale skin. Palladians, they are 7 feet tall, pale skin. Anunnaki, I kind of get an idea that they are hybrid beings that go from place to place with mixed genetics already. All right, because you already have hybrids, which Enki is already mixed before he comes down. So these are things to think about. All right. So let's continue. So Enki explained to the leadership how easy it would be to get it done with the help of Ninma and her biomedical expertise. 446. So they who were listening and those who control destiny said out loud, yes, it can be done, yes. However, the undertaking described by Enki was easier said than done. All right. It is possible, but it took a lot of trial and error. The stone tablets of the Ashtar-Hasis describe considerable trial and error, resulting in deformed and defective creatures. So the experiment continued. Ninma figured out, with the help Enki got from Tamaray, which Yakasat's genes affect what, and declared that she now could deliberately produce whatever her heart's desire. All right, because we know that in Tamaray, they had their own. Because we know that Natharu came way before Anunnaki came. So they used some of the sciences that they found amongst the Tamarayans, all right, to help them. So the Anunnaki is also learning some of their science from those already here, all right? So that's something to consider, all right? 540. She became known as Mami Ninti, or Mother Ninti, master of tea, seed, gene, mistress of tea seed, all right, or gene. Then many other Muzya Mutatatlu extraterrestrials did likewise and made creatures as well as ape men, dog men, pig men, crossbreed to make all kind of nawahats, kinds of grafted, unnatural creatures on Mata Earth. All right. So you had Enki and also Ninti. You have their team working on extraterrestrials. All right. You have the beings in Tamaray who already had some sciences already on it. So that must have already happened. You had other extraterrestrials doing it too. All right. So many have since died out. Others took to hide inside macabre planets or under the Mayayat's waters, or was taken off the planet. All right. So some of these beings, They just died off. Some of them went into the caves. Some of them went into the waters. And some of these extraterrestrials took their creations with them. All right. And this is his story. His story, Sajalat's records, kept on stone tablets, then transferred onto scrolls, then Misfahat's books that they call the Holy Bible and Quran, their stories, not our story. All right. So you hear that. This is their stories. All right. So, because before I knew who Baba was, I remember I had to study in school the Epics of Gilgamesh. But you find it also in the holy tablets. All right. So these records, Baba took time to come to take us back to those records. All right. You learn about Gilgamesh. You learn about what's that the wild person that he was always fighting that became his friend. Oh, I can't believe I forgot his name. All right. But the wild man, the beast man who beat him. And Gilgamesh got beat by this hairy man who was most likely half Shaggy in the story. So just take your time to go and read the books for yourselves. All right. And then you see how they grafted out of those stories. They grafted the Bible, they grafted the Quran. All right. And when you tell their true story, they call it Salalism, racism. All right. So now when you become a record keeper and you go back to where everything is and who everything is, and you're just speaking the facts of what's actually recorded, Baba didn't make up those facts. They are recorded already, and it's pointing towards a specific creature. And it's not talking about every creature on planet Earth. And then it takes you to a specific, what we start to call race. All right. And when you just speaking the facts, they call it racism. All right. When they lie about your true story, they call it historian, yet it should be called histology, the study of microscopic tissue structures. All right, that's called histology, which will show who is the oldest and the first, which reveals historicity, which is historical authenticity. All right. So when you start when Baba says, don't just call it his story. All right, because it's not really, that's his story. It's not our story, everyone's story. Call it histology, because histology deals with breaking things apart. And when you start breaking down the different races apart, what makes up your structure versus what makes up this structure tissue, you'll notice that they're not the same. All right. So now you're going to go back to the authenticity. So it's going to help to clean up the facts, like how they like to say when we were cavemen. All right. They're talking about when they were cavemen, because while they were living in the caves, there was people throughout the whole planet that weren't living in the caves. When they talk about how, oh, we had chastity belts, and that's what they do in school. It'd be all types of different races sitting in their class. And they talk about very generally to everybody, oh, when we were cavemen and we didn't wash our hands. And it was proven that the Caucasians, they learned about cleanliness when they started interfacing with the other races, all right, who were taking showers, for example, all right. So it was even when they came in contact, there's stories about that with Native Americans, where in their documents they call them they smelled bad. Even when you go and you watch the movie Roots, and they were saying how to look out in that classic Alex Haley's movie, The Roots, special. It's a mini series, and you see when they were saying, oh, you can smell the Caucasian coming, and they smell like raw chicken. All right. So they even had different smells that they can say, oh, they're on their way. I can't see them, but I can smell them. So if you smell what raw chicken, you know to get away. That's in the movie Roots. All right. So it has all been proven beyond any doubt that Nagar Nadu Negroids are the oldest Salar race on the macabre planets. When it comes to the Qaqas Nadu or the Caucasoids, they are histrionic. All right. Histrionic. That's a form of narcissism. Histrionic personality disorder. Study that too. Study psychopathy. They are histrionic. That is acting, or mudmalu, actors overacting or overacted. And they are what they never can or be or were. It is called histrionics, dramatics, an artificial manner, fake, a false emotion. All right. You have people with histrionic personality disorder. All right. They like to be seen. They need to be the star of the show. All right. They would do really bad things to themselves just to get attention. All right. Very dramatic. All right. Anything to get attention or to be the star. All right. They'll cry for whatever they need to do. All right. So when we are historical, factual, traditional, chronicled, we have in findings of Ajamat's bones, our chronicle. They only have Misfahat's books that they made up as the Bible and the Quran, and never have or can say the seed of Adam or Bible prophet ever existed by those that are not names. All right. So the reality is that, yeah, Baabaa he's a prolific writer. He wrote so many books. All right. He should be, I don't know if he holds the Guinness World Record of most books written by one person. I don't know. But he wrote so many books. And even though we take the time, the facts are not in the books. You learn about the facts, but the facts are actually in nature, it's in life. And that's where we go to the confirmations. So you don't look for a fact, let me find this other book to find this fact. No. You can educate yourself, but you have to go and confirm the facts. All right. In life, nature, our facts are confirmed actually in nature. Like Bob is saying here. That's the difference between us and the Adamite seed. The only thing that has them confirmed is books. Baba said we're actually authenticated in our very bones. All right. So let's read that again. 457. When we have historical, factual, traditional chronicled, we have findings of Ajamat's bones, our chronicle. They only have Misfahat's books that they made up as the Bible and the Quran, and never have or can say the seed of Adam or Bible prophet ever existed by those Rananat's names. Where are the Ajamat's bones? They live by blind Thakak faith. We live by divine facts. 460, Musbatu Sabians, defining and identifying a humanoid Muan animal creature is what differentiates and distinguishes that Sanafu species or Salar race from other Haman Nadu humanoids. We do not need the Hadabat's lies and confusion in the Akal mind of the students or Mutlabor seeker after Hakakat's actual facts, as in Wu-sabat does not wish to read or hear unclear information on the subject and information on races of humanoids, no exception from Sanafu species, Hawanu animals, which as a species is race as well. All right. So you could talk about a race or you could talk about species, whatever you want to, because in humans they call it race. In animals they may call it just species. All right. So when you're differentiating, you're going back A bulldog, for example, and a pit bull is going to have different DNA, for example, even though they both go back to the wolf. Or you have a cat and you have another animal. All right. So when you start to look at the genetics and the codes and the story that the genes are telling, all right, that's how you get to the facts of who is who. All right. And we have to acknowledge that. And we are not interested in anything that's not clear. All right. And if somebody says something to you that's not clear, I don't care if they claim to be Wu-sabat, you have the right to ask them questions, because what is Wu-sabat? Wu-sabat is definitions. Wu-sabat is explanations. Wu-sabat is demonstrations. All right. It's confirmations. All right. And sometimes people, they're like, well, I've been around this amount of time, so you should just listen to me. That's not Wu-sabat. All right. That's something else. All right. But that's not how Wu-sabat works. That's not an explanation. All right. So can you tell me how you know this, XYZ? Like, can you explain more to that? I've been around for this amount of years, and I worked with the teacher. All right. I still didn't get the explanation about how XYZ works. That's not Wu-sabat. All right. That's something else. All right. So now you know, as a Sabian, what your responsibility and your right is. You have the responsibility and the right to know, all right, and to get clarity. All right. So 461. Hamam Nadu, or humanoids, are also separated into groups or species, a Roman word, which means a kind, as in appearance, as you see when you look at Salalu races of Mukasu people, even in the same Moisar family or nationality, yet they do not look exactly the same. Just as with felines or Kamatu, canines, or Kawafu, simians, you find separate species that are race in them. All right. So that also accounts for why we don't get along as much as we do, because we don't necessarily we could be from the same family, but we didn't necessarily because we all mix in and stuff like that. We don't necessarily all inherit the same exact genetics from our parents. All right. So for example, you may get more of that genetic and this one may get more of that genetic, and they are two warring nations. So that family is not unified. All right. Because they have different programs. All right. Or different dominant programs. So 463, all felines are not the same lawan color, nor mulabu, canines, or kawafu simians. The same for humanoids. 464, the proven older Sanafu species or Salau race of humanoids is Nagar Nadu Negroids, recognized uniquely by our Wabar here, as we grow genuinely kinky hair. All right. Not all of us anymore. Some of us have wavy hair. Some of us even have straight hair. But we're talking about the root of our race, not what has happened. All right. We're not talking about our mixtures. All right. So, because you might have younger genetics, even though you identify as the Nagad Nadu. All right. So we're not usurping the original image for what we became. We're gonna acknowledge it. All right. So the Nagad Nadu Negroes recognize uniquely as our bar here that we genuinely grow kinky hair. All right. If you know that if your hair is not unique anymore, then you know that your genes aren't as unique anymore either. So that you know the power of the genes. So 465. The next on Sajab record of the species or race of humanoids is the Nagar Nadu, the Mongoloids, recognized uniquely by their hollow thorn-like growths. All right. So even the Mongoloid, Asian hair is not like Caucasian hair. They both appear straight, but their hair is unique as well. Because our hair, if you were to pluck it and you look at it, all right, it's gonna be flat. That's why it curls up. If you were to look at a Caucasian hair, all right, it's a circle and it goes flank. And if you were to look at a Asian person, when I say Asian, I'm not talking about Indian, I'm talking about Mangalu, all right? And you cut their hair, it's going to be hollow in the center, if you can see, all right, like a bamboo, all right? So each race has a different genetic code because their DNA, you look like the reason why you look the way you do is because of your DNA sequence and your DNA information. So you didn't randomly get your hair like that. You didn't randomly get your features. It's a program coming from your DNA. All right. So you can study the program, all right, of the different races. So they look different because their DNA is different. So they have different classifications. And that's not racist to acknowledge that. And then you're going to go as to why. So now you learn the what. You start answering all the questions. Why? Who? Where? Okay, how? All right. You're going to get different answers. And when you start to explain the Caucasian, they don't like what they hear. So they start saying that's racist. All right. And then 466, the final on record of the species or race of Hamarnadu is the Qaqas-Nadu Caucasoid, recognized by what most Hawaiian animals grow as fur. All right. So we call our hair wabar. So now we're further classifying it. So now we see that we don't consider Asians hair fur anymore because now we're specifying it. But we don't consider wabar either. So we have wabar. Caucasians have farar. And Asians have gawaf. All right. Gawaf is known as a thorn-like growths. All right, hollow thorn-like growths. All right, and then the Caucasian has fur, which their fur is very similar to many other animals. Where Asians' hair is unique from other animals because you don't really find many animals with that hair. I mean, I could think of the porcupine. Wabad, you don't find many animals with the hair like us. I mean, I could think of one, the sheep. They have wool. But overall, animals have fur. All right. Some of us have fur now because we've been mixing with them. Right. Some Asians have fur or some mixture between the two. But at their root, we're talking about the roots, the origin of each race. All right. So growths from the body, some much more than others. Therefore, basically and scientifically, there are three major species or races of humanoids, and from them mixing was born many sub-races or races. All right. So you see, for example, the Indian, right? It's not really that unique because the Indian is really a combination of something else going on. That's why the Indians was in the green zone originally with us. All right, as we learn our existence here now, another scroll we're going to read together eventually. So growth from the body, some much more than others. All right, some grow a lot of hair on their body, some not much at all. All right, therefore, basically and scientifically, there are three major species or races of humanoids, and from them mixing was born many subspecies or races. Renanat's names do not change the genetics of each race into new races. However, it does create new species. All right. So just because on this part of the planet, because when you start doing the genetics and you start to see, well, how did this being come about? For example, you have the Native Americans that they have, a lot of them have that same hollow hair. So that hollow hair is unique on the planet to Asians. But the only other group that has hair like that is as some groups of Native Americans. All right. So just because you change your place on the planet, when you start to go to the genetics and the DNA, and then you start to see some of them also have Wu-sabat, and some of them interface before the Caucasoid came amongst them. All right. Some of them are somewhere in the middle. And Baabaa is letting you know, just because you change the name of something doesn't change the genetics of it, but it can create a new species. All right. So for example, from a wolf, all right, which is the ancestor of a dog, you could genetically modify it. Now, a Dalmatian dog acts very different from a golden retriever. So they're different, they become different species, but you can still go back to its roots and its source. And just because I change the name of an animal doesn't change the genetics of it. All right. But you start changing little details, okay, it becomes a new species. All right. So, and you see some with curly hair. All right. You see some with curly hair. All right. So curly hair is not the same as kinky hair. All right. Curly hair is a mixture. Kinky hair, it wraps around in itself. All right. So that's why Baba said most of us are not really naive anymore. Most of us are somewhere between, let's just say 8, but 7 and 8. All right. With various things that happen in the genetics. But nonetheless, we know where we're striving towards or who we're aligning ourselves, which genetic program is going to take us back. Who has the longest link? It's going to be the Nagad Nadu. So it would not be, if you were mixed, it would be foolish not to cling on to your Nagad Nadu. It would be foolish. All right. So in Hakaka, actual fact, we are not all the same as one Hamanu Salau human race. We are separate species as races. We don't have the same DNA, nor the same genes, nor the same Damam blood types. We don't look alike, we don't think alike, and we don't move alike. We don't eat the same barahat foods, and we don't like the same masak music. Now what's happening? We're starting to hybridize more and more. All right. I do think that a lot of the black kids today, a lot of them do kind of remind me of like white kids. The way they look, even the way they act, their swag is changing. All right, that's what's happening. The genetics are changing. That's what it tells you. All right, and that's why we've been tasked. All right, we know we're protecting them. All right. So we don't smell the same, and we are not the same, and we are different. We are different Sanaf species. 475. And of course, there are exceptions who are out of their own akal mind. Right? So Baba is saying like we don't smell the same, not by default. Not if you're in your own mind. Now some of us, there's gonna be exceptions, all right? Because why? We're out of our mind. And as such, out of tune with their own fatah, natural nature, and try to be like other than self by accepting others' ways. Khadab culture, Za'amat religions, tongues, pretenders, and wannabes. All right. So you have some like I'm thinking about like Asian holistic medicine. It's very good. But their body, by their very DNA, has its own code. So they might take some type of herbs that is great for them. Then in the gardener do they go to take it, it doesn't have the same effect. All right. Or you eat in a certain way. All right. I noticed that from my relationship with some Asians, a lot of them eat a lot, and they eat a lot of meat, and they eat a lot. All right. And so let's just say, and I'm like, okay, but she's skinny or pretty slim. And I'm like, well, how do you eat all that meat and stay so slim? You know? In actuality, they have a different system, a different vibration, a different body. And all of them don't eat a lot of meat, like not all of them. But I'm just saying because there's different species within Asians themselves. That's why they don't necessarily all look exactly the same, nor do they all move exactly the same. But you're aligning yourself with a force that's not yours. So your body was never going to respond the way theirs would. All right. But you'll shift onto their frequency. And it's not to call them bad or anything. It's just to call them different. All right. So I did notice that what's good for, because I used to think that there was only one way to be. And until I met this woman, and she was a unique woman. Uh, she had green eyes, and she was very neutrinoid. But she was a strict vegan. She didn't eat any meat. And then she was having a hard time having children. She kept trying to get pregnant. She just wouldn't get pregnant. And then they didn't really figure out what was wrong. But anyway, she went to some like natural holistic healer. And this natural holistic healer was actually a vegetarian. That was the funny part. But the natural holistic healer told the lady that she had a different kind of DNA where she should eat meat. And she started, and not just any meat, they told her to eat red meat. And that's the first time she was able to carry her child. So she actually carried the child. And the child is fine. All right. She didn't really produce many children. She only had one child. But that's the first time in many, many years. So then I'm like, that's not my story. That's her business. And it made me realize that I don't really know what I don't know. But I know myself. So you have certain things that can heal your body and it can possibly kill someone else. So that's why you go according to your group, your species. I'm trying to think what's good for humans and very dangerous. Like, for example, onions. I think onions are poisonous to cats. All right. So imagine the cat, you're trying to treat the cat like a human, give it some onions. I think raw onions, I think it's raw onions. And we can eat that and it's considered good for us. All right. So it's the same thing that the different races have various programs that shift. All right. So 476. Then you have those Naga-Nadu Negroids who was given by the slave master a false Khadab culture of Negroism played out on TV and Sanam cinema, paid to act a certain way, like talk a certain way and ignore their true noble African and Native American nature, that which was made over 400 years from 1600 AD to 2000 AD. A Negro, an American, Afro-American, a nigger, a man or a made people pleaser by their master to degrade them, all right, paid to act a fool. Like, for example, this whole gangster. I was looking up the whole gangster before the 1960s. There was really no gangster. All right, we had the civil rights movement. But where did this gangster come from? It was actually created. And it was actually based on this whole mafia. That's why you have junior mafia, right? Junior mafia. But it was what they was pushing back in like the 70s. Say hello to my little friend and Godfather. So you had and they were told that this is what is masculine. This is what's sexy. And then you had the Black is Beautiful movement that turned into an aphrodisiac. So it went from empowering the people to being something to just pimps and hoes. Because in the 1970s, that was a whole government infiltration. So it was drugs, that whole pimp culture. You know, you walk with your cane, and you had the woman with the big afro and the leopard print on. All right, and then you had the gangsters. All right, so that was all made to neutralize. That was part of the COINTELPRO program. All right, to neutralize the movement and progress. But before then, you didn't have that. That was all manufactured, and they was paid to behave a certain way. Can you talk more black, meaning more ignorant? All right, so you could give up your noble history. All right, and now 2025. All right, you see that program is really not that old. All right, so he offers them wealth and fame to act the fool, for him to say, look at them. It is okay to use them. Katal kill them. Qaqas-Hu rape them. And they don't know who they are. They are nobodies. All right. So what ends up happening is they put that program of self-hate out. Think about it, the Bad Girls Club and all that. And it conditions people to see these people as they're nobodies. All right. Go kill them. All right. You talking about yourself, calling yourself, all kinds of names, degraded names, calling your women these names. This is my nigga. You know what I'm saying? When did we start doing that? All right. When did that become classified as black culture? Not before the 1960s. All right. That was manufactured. All right. And that now you know why. All right. Use them, rape them, Negroid out of her mind, wanting to be other than self. All right. I love Lil Kim. I think she's I could just feel she's a sweetheart inside. I don't know, I could just tell. But I've heard her interviews, very, very damaging music. And she talked about the mistreatment that she experienced. She comes from an abusive home. She was only a child and she was being exploited. And I think her first nose job was because she was being physically, her nose was broken. And one of her boyfriends, I guess, broke her nose. She got her nose fixed. And right after she fixed it, he broke her nose again. And then she said that she feels that in her interview, she said that it seems that they stopped blaming her for wanting to look like a white woman, she said, because um that it seems like that's what they like, the European or Eurocentric women. So don't blame her for wanting to be that. So she didn't deny it. She just said, I'm a victim, pretty much. And that's why I want to look like this. Because if I had been lighter or more European looking, she felt she would have been more valued. All right. And then think about how Biggie treated her. And in Biggie's interview, he says when he saw Faith Evans, he was starstruck. He saw a movie star. All right. So, and I guess Lil Kim's world is true to some degree. But the reality that they all treated bad, all of them. All right. So just because she puts her skin a little lighter and put blonde hair, doesn't mean she's gonna get treated any better. All right. And there we go. You know, this is supposed to be making fun of, but if you notice the way that it starts, is that the seduction always starts is that they act like they're making fun of it, but in time they start to wear that costume seriously. So I remember in the early 90s, they used to put men in dresses all the time to tease and make fun of it. But the reality is now it's a very serious thing. So first they have to um, seduce you, and they seduce you with comedy first because they get your mind used to it. But in actuality, they're really uh, emulating. And then also they're just being paid to emasculate or dehumanize themselves. All right. And even Shanae, all right. Shanae, she felt like a real character. I really liked her, but they made her like she's some type of ghetto loudmouth black woman because I think he played that role really well. And so now you have Gina, who's this light-skinned, sophisticated woman. So now it's like you're looking at she's supposed to be ghetto. All right. So how he's portraying his woman to look, all right, and how his woman to be, because I was overhearing these Hispanic girls. I was listening to them talk. I didn't know them. And then they were talking about some black girl, and they said, yeah, she got the nerve to talk about us, but they were like really a ghetto, all right? And this is what they had to say about the black girl that they were talking about, who I don't know anything about the situation. I just overheard them. And they was like, oh, who she thinks she is? They talking about some black girl. She's so ghetto. You see her hair, and they explain why the reason why she's ghetto because she got black skin. That's why she ghetto. You should see her hair. And it's like they're the ones who sound ghetto or ignorant. All right. So they didn't say anything that the girl did. It's just her appearance, and this is why. All right. I'm not saying that the girls don't have their own prejudices, but people were paid to solidify this. All right. In people's mind. All right. So this was all manufactured. All right. Because what was going on before 1950? All right. So the Caucasus-Nadu Caucasoids see in the West, once they give a Nagar-Nadu Negroid an equal chance, they exceed all others in everything they do. So he fears the Nagar-Nadu Negroids waking up and taking over for self and kind and not need them. That is the great fear. So they spend billions to keep the stereotypes in place of the Negroes. All right. So this is the reason why it's made that way. All right. Because even think about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. All right. Tulsa, Oklahoma, it, uh, it was segregation. Blacks weren't allowed. Great, fine. We'll do it ourselves. And they had hospitals. They were doing well. They were at the banks. They were actually, there was many wealthy people. Everybody started to thrive. And the neighboring towns, the whites, they were realizing that they're actually outgrowing our system. Actually, their system is actually better than ours. So let's go destroy it. So whenever they see the potential of what Black people can be, whether it's sports or whatever the case is, whatever it is, all right, they have to give you some type of self-hate program, all right, to keep you in need of them. Because Black Wall Street was an example that they didn't need that. We don't need them. They actually need us. Because you started to even have some white people going to them to borrow from their banks. And they actually helped other systems. And the white people were just getting so upset, like there's no reason why they should be doing better than us. All right. So they spend billions to keep the stereo systems in place. All right. Keeping their Negroes. All right. Try to find me a gangster before the year 1960. You're not going to find no gangsters. All right. 482. By Za'amat, religions of Abrahism, They teach to Nagar Nadu, Negroids, Mosesism, Jesusism, Mohammedism, in any and all kinds of ways. Just believe in what they pass on to you. Worship our Shabbat image, not your own. All right. So I don't want to be none of these people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like either be white or be a buffoon, because now you think this is black culture. Why would anybody want to be this? All right. So now they have you running from yourself. All right. Even more. All right. So just believe in what they pass on to you and worship a Shabbat, an image not of your own. All right. Because I'm not about to worship this image, you know, although I think she's such a beautiful woman, you know, but she didn't know that. So why you want to follow behind somebody that don't even appreciate themselves? All right. 483. Pa Mudradu, the Dravidians, Khamem Kasar, black skin, curly, Southeast Indians, or the brown germ, called the Asiatic black man, came from Pa Nagar Nadu, the Negroids, Khamem Kasar, black skin, kinky Wabar hair, or the original Haman Nadu, humanoids, black germ, and all other races came by way of Pa Mudravu, the Dravidians. All right. So Baba breaks down. That's why you see them in how and why existence. Existence, how and why is the actual fact. That you see there was a red zone and there was a green zone. And the Africans were in the green zone. You also find the Dravidians, they were also in the green zone. The Indians, they were in the green zone. And then you had the Asians, Caucasians, they were in the red zone. All right. So now you see, because the brown seed came directly from the black seed, and then all others were pulled out of the brown seed. All right. So all this took place long ago when the continents were one: North America, South America, and West, and now Africa, Sinai, Madagascar, Jordan, Iraq, Arabia, Yemen, Oman, United AE, I forgot what it stands for, United something, UAE, and all the islands of the Caribbean. Yeah. Okay. 485, as well as East Antarctica, Australia, and India. Sri Lanka was all one landmass, one continent. Then a great weapon caused the continental drift. 487. All that was one land before the making of the last species, or the Paa Taraq, the Caucasoid, the pill skin, thin, straight farar hair, called the white Rajal, man, or a kind of man, man's kind, Murjal, or man's kind. All right. So before the Caucasian came and all the races was already here, it was still in one continent, all right, or all together before the continental drift. So now you hear the evidence of the other races existing before the continental drift. All right. So from Pa Nagar Nadu Negroids came Pa Mudravu, or the Dravidians, and from mixing with the graft germ Pa Qaqas-Nadu Caucasoids came about others, from Kamem black to Samir brown to Safir yellow to Hamir red to the Laben whites. There was much grafting and separating of genes. After breeding and mingling, and many subspecies fled from where they inhabited to particular geographical areas or geographic areas of this new Tapa world. And the last race or Sanafu species was not made until 6,000 years ago. All right. So after the breeding and mingling between the many subspecies, they began to go to different particular areas. All right. Same way if you follow the movements of the, I always mispronounce that group from where Baabaa is, his mother, the Ewe tribe, EWE, that's currently in Ghana. But if you look at that, and you do a little research on the Ewe tribe, is that they actually migrated from east to west, all right, over much time. So you find their migrations, they go back to like Egypt, Sudan area, all right, and different things that has happened. Like even modern day Ghana, all right, Ghana was only called Ghana 1960 something, I forgot when. Before that, it was known as the Gold Coast, the Gold Coast. And the Ganawa or Ghana Empire was actually more north. It wasn't on the coastline. It was where Mali is. But when the Ghanaians said we want our independence, they said, and we are Ghanaians because we come from the Ghanaian Empire, all right, which was made up of at least 5 countries. So that includes Mali, Senegal, and some other countries, all right? And it was more north, but they said, yes, we're down here now, but this is where we're from, all right? So now that's why you see, oh, why is the Ghana Empire north, but modern day Ghana is south, all right? Now you know why, all right? So, so all this took place, all right? All that was one land before the making of the last species of the Paa Taraq, the Caucasoids, pale skin, thin, straight fur, called white. And from Paa, let's see, I already read that. After much breeding, this is what I was talking about, all right? And how people try to erase people's histories, but the Ghanaians, they say, you're not going to erase our history. So they're acknowledging pretty much the Ghana Empire, which included Mali. All right. So they put little history about themselves in the name. Also, like Senegal. Senegal is a Wolof word. All right. That means boat. Senegal means boat. All right. It's because they were sailing and different things, a very boat culture. All right. But then when you say Ghana and you talk about the Ghana Empire, then you know you're including Senegal, you're including Mali. I forget the other countries that was there. All right, maybe Burkina Faso was included. I can't remember. All right. Yeah. So after breeding and mingling, and many subspecies fled from where they inhabited to particular geographic areas of this new Tapa world. And the last race, or Sanafu species, was not made until 6,000 years ago, 400 BC, while all others were on the macabre planet millions of years before the lion, the cursed sea. All right. So there was already diversity here before the Caucasian, because the Caucasian was the last ones. All right. Most of what you read is not Tapao or world history, only Qaqas-Hu, his story. I mean, I can attest to that myself. That's why I never liked history class. I used to dread going to history class. And all they ever talked about was European history. And then when you had to take American history, then you had to take world history. And they always spent all their time in Europe and America. So it was just, you just studying Europe and America. And in the world history, you might have 1 week where you talk about what happened in Asia. And then just maybe 1 or 2 days, you talk about Africa. All right. Which I'm happy they didn't, because they were going to lie anyway. But I used to always sleep in history class. I would always sit in the back and I would just go to sleep. It was my nap time. All right. So most of what you read is not Tapal world history, only Qaqas-Hu history. Because of him being grafted, his Yakasaj genes are much weaker than all others and suffer mental problems, made weaker mentally and physically from the others. If you study the weaker gene of animals, you'll find albino of each species is defective. Bad sight, bad hearing, hardened Ajamat bones, and unruly mentality. All right. So if you have time to go and study animals, you will notice that the albino is typically going to be different from the rest of the species. And this is true. I took a trip to Costa Rica. When I went to Costa Rica, there was the howler monkeys. And the howler monkeys are dark, which is very, very important because being dark is important because it eats a lot of food and then it lays out in the sun. And the sun helps the digestive system. So they lay out and the sun is actually helping them to digest their food. So what happens is that the albino species, which there's a lot, there was a growth, they were talking about the growth of the albinos because there was more albinos being born amongst them, which was a problem. Because the reason why it was a problem was because the albinos were out of tune in various ways. And although they were accepted amongst the ones without the problem, but they had a lot of digestive issues. So they said that the albino monkeys amongst them, they don't digest their food very well because for that specific species, it's very important of them being a darker color because the way it helps them to operate the sun for that digestion. All right. So now by digestion, you can add that to the list. So albino of each species, bad sight, bad hearing. All right. Hardened ajamat's bones and unruly mentality. All right. So you have blue eyes. Blue eyes are known to have a harder time seeing. And there are a few, like, I think, who's that girl? She's really popular. Billie Eilish or Billie Eilish. She has dark hair, but she's really blonde, but she dyes it. And she has really light eyes, like sky blue eyes. But if you look at her eyes, you notice that it's like going like this. Like it's not really focusing, so like totally. So there was another model on America's Next Top Model. She had blue eyes and she was actually legally blind, but they said, oh, she's so beautiful. So they glamorize their defects. All right. So an all-white horse is the most difficult to train. The same with an all-white Kalub dog. All right. So those of us who've had experience with maybe farm animals and different things like that, the white horse is more temperamental. All right. Most are sun blind and a temperament is bad. The same for albino humanoids of the species. They are hot-tempered and hard to get along with. They suffer with all kinds of physical diseases and sickness because of their leprous genes. In these final days, even amongst other creatures of earth, albinos are being born. This is the sign of their end, the end of a evolution on planet Earth. All right. So you see more albinos are being born. An increase of that. And that is what they were, because when I went to Costa Rica, I went to the rainforest and I was studying the ecology. That's where I went. I was interested in that. And that was one of the concerns that they noticed, that the rise of the howler monkeys being born albino, which was a problem. All right, so it was increasing. I forgot the percentage, but it was kind of, it had grew their percentage of albino monkeys. All right. So Baba said that you'll see albinos being born and increase. All right. In these final days, even among other creatures of earth, albinos are being born. This is the sign of their end, the end of the evolution of planet Earth. When Laoen color is bleached out, they will fade off. And you see the leper Rahaj man or white man holding up white snakes, performing with white felines and cats. You see many white frogs, dogs, cats, even samuk fish and birds, be it land, air, or sea. They are at their end. All right. I remember it was a big thing 20 years ago or so. It was the albino lions and the albino tigers. And they were getting a lot of attention on TV. So 497. Musbatu Sabians, do not akkad, believe me, check this out for yourself. This will not affect you unless you mix your genes with one of them. All right. So you see certain genes, and this is another thing that's happening. The sun cycle may be also pulling dormant things in the genetics out. All right. So this is why the importance of genes, because a lot of people are learning things about themselves because the genes are expressing themselves. So it doesn't affect you unless you carry one of those defective genes. All right. Because genes are being activated. All right. Genetics are being activated right now. All right. So what's hidden, that's why Bible say you turn yourself inside out, and some people are not going to like what they're seeing. All right. Now for us, all right, it will not affect you unless you mix your genes with one of them. Too late for that, right? Many of us already did that. That's why we also have been tasked with cleaning ourselves inside out and living our culture. Because did you know that you can have different things programmed in your genes, and by your behaviors and by your habits, you can activate and you can turn on and turn off some genes. All right. And also the energy in which you're passing, the genetics. All right. So I did notice lately that you can have people who are very nagaru, like very nigaru, with a lot of strong nigaru features. And how could the baby looks Italian? The baby should look a lot more nagaru. I know the baby's mixed, but why are these babies coming out so white for so suddenly? And it's also because, well, number one, they are mixing with this Caucasian person, but the mentality, all right, the person is more out of their mind than ever before, because it took 400 years for us to get to this state. All right. So at our worst state, all right. So you can have somebody with the same genetics, and by the decisions of what they make can activate how these genetics come forward. All right. So that's the importance of what we're doing now, because we can be closing off certain defects instead of passing them forward. We can be letting them fade away. And that's why constantly reading our scrolls is helpful, doing the chants is helpful, speaking the language, all right, because that helps to call forth those protecting genetics. And you're more likely to pass that on instead of your other genetics. All right. So you learn about that in neuroscience of Wu-sabat and other scrolls, how to turn it off and turn on other genetics. All right. So Musbatu Sabians, do not, I could believe me. Check this out for yourself. This will not affect you unless you mix your genes with one of them. 498. As when Dracula puts his Daman blood in a person, they become his slave or servant. Oh, one of the movies I really enjoyed was Vampire in Brooklyn. But you see that how he made Kadim, I forgot his last name, but he's a good actor. That he made that Hardison.
Tour.
Okay. Yeah. Hadim Hardison, and he became the ghoul for him. All right, his body was all falling apart and everything, but he was just the slave of the character of Eddie Murphy, who was the vampire. All right. So even Dracula puts his demon blood in a person, they become his slave or servants. All right. A lot of us are slave and servants to certain habits. It's just hard to get that because that's that vampire DNA and our attachment, and that's what we're fighting through. All right. And that's why we become a slave to doing what's not best for ourselves. And we got to burn it out. All right. In time. By what? How? You can do that by activating those sun heat genes. It's like getting a fever, right? When you get a fever, it's killing off certain, let's say, what do you call those things that harm your body? I forgot what you call those. Let's just say microbials that are harmful. All right. And then at the end, it's just you. All right. So hopefully your genes are strong enough to take the heat. All right. And that's how you cure yourself. All right. So by living our culture, all right, being ourselves. All right. So yet we must welcome the vampire into their Muklan home, as we did in Moraria, America, and Madradia, India, and Afafrika, Africa. All right. So we invited them. We welcomed them. We helped them. Why? Why do we do that? Compassion. All right. So they came to America. They mixed in, gave us some of their diseases. All right. Wiped some of us off, and then some of us are left picking up the pieces today. They went to India. All right. Mixed with the Indians. They picking up the pieces today. Went to Africa. All right. And that's why we honor the mosquito that protected Africa, or else it would have been even worse. But it affected Africa. Africans are picking up the pieces today. All right. So this is the variation of albino creatures found in nature. All right. So it's just considered like, sickly genetics. And there's many things that come forth in that way. So we are not just different races. We are different species, not the same, not made to live together. For the albino or the Qaqas-Hu of our own species is a killer for nature because of his weak genes, as all other albino species of Makai, creature on Mata, earth. This does not mean hate them. It means avoid contact with them. They fade out of Wajunan existence with Wakut time. All right. I remember Baabaa saying it's not just about who you like. Some people, it's just not wise to procreate with them. It's not about just you liking somebody. Certain genetics. All right. If you see, I don't want to sound harsh, but according to what this is saying, it wouldn't be the wisest thing to procreate with an albino African, albino anything. All right. It doesn't mean hate them. It doesn't mean treat them bad. It's just letting those genetics fade out. All right. And Baabaa said, some of us should not be reproducing. All right. Might sound harsh, but all right. So 502. Pashamash. The sun is at work, same as in Kanamat cinemas of the Dracula's vampire race. No one wins the race of racism. Musbatu Sabians. What mainly concerns most Qaqas-Hu people on Makab Mata, planet Earth, or the planet Planeti are individuals and groups of persons, and Salalu races of humanoids, their own past, present, and future, and also well-being for the present and future. And what concerns most Qaqas-Hu people is justice, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what further concerns most people is facts, gathering correct information, not Qadabat's lies, legends, Qasasat's stories, yet actual proven facts of their origins and the origins of those around them that they trust and mix with. All right. So we study the scrolls together and everything like that. How many people before, okay, y'all are Sabians. How many of y'all go to the doctor first and get a blood test? Not just for STDs or for genetics. How many of you study to see what's in the person's family? Does a person have schizophrenia? Does a person, because you know that's, what's it called? Genetic. That could be genetically passed. I mean, there's different ways that schizophrenia can come about. All right. But one of the ways. How many people are taking the time to do that? All right. Because just because somebody reads a book doesn't change the facts. And I noticed that the facts are great as long as it pertains to everybody else. How about when it pertains to ourselves and each other? Do we honor the facts then? All right. That might seem like a harsh thing. And that's why Baba says, punch him in the jeans. You realize Baba wasn't just talking about the Caucasoid. He's talking about us too, because some of us see things we don't like. All right. 506. All right. So that's why no one wins the race in racism. All right. Because you realize as you point out to others, 3 fingers are probably pointing out back at you. All right. Even when you're talking about other races at this day and time. All right. So 506. What of this universe and the place and things and Qaqas-Hu people there is here? Well, Wu-sabat deals and indeed teaches on origins of persons, places, and things and races of humanoids, and the separation of each species are no exception. When a Wahu Makwan universe first comes into being, what is the origin of a Wahu Makwan universe in and of the Kale Makwanat omniverse? It is void and flesh. It is void of flesh and demand blood creatures. All right. So when you have the growing and the expansion, all right, the flesh and blood creatures come after. All right. So in the beginning, all right, there's no flesh and blood creatures. Therefore, there's no physical individuals, as in female and male persons, to start any race of a Qaqas-Hu people in the Wahu Makwan, grown in and of the Kale Makwanat omniverse. So in actual fact, or hakak, at the beginning of this Wahu Makwan universe, at its birth, Mawat's death did not exist. Therefore, Mawat's death was surely no threat to life anywhere in this universe. All right. So without birth, you can't have death. That came later. All right. 510. The specific creative power that I, Baabaa Yaanun, have are found in Mashmash, sun, Maha, moon, Mata, earth, and the whole solar system of Wahu Makwan universe. So Bob is telling you that he's even tapping in to even before flesh and blood. He's going right into the sun, the moon, the earth, the universe. All right. Because the beings came later on, the beings are from those circumstances. But that's the creative power that he's talking about. And Nagad Nadu Makwan, Negro beings of this universe, the original persons on this Makab Mata planet Earth, being flesh and blood, Makwan beings. All right, flesh and blood beings. All right, let's see, where am I? Okay, we're on 61 at verse 511. And Nagad Nadu Makwanu, humanoid, Negroid beings of this universe, the original persons on this Makab Mata planet Earth, became flesh and blood Makwanu beings called Natharu, overseers, and Nathartatu, overseers who originated by way of Masa, Orion, and Sabat. Masbat, Sabat, Najam. Right? Masbat, Sabat, Najam. Sirius star system to grow this Mashmash, sun, Maha, moon, Mata, earth, thoughts into beings from themselves. All right? So it's like when the egg divides, it's reminding me of that. All right? And that's why they call it mother cells or sister cells. It gives birth to itself. All right? So now we can think of ourselves that way too. All right? Because it grew this sun, moon, and earth through beings from themselves. They call that meiosis in science, or mitosis. I can't remember which one. It's one of those mitosis, myos. So the original beings of flesh and blood, all right? Because where does flesh and blood come from? And that's why we go back to our chants, all right? The 99 chants, you realize you're going through the natural growth cycles, all right? So you're going from the Agdads, and you have Noon, which is that vibration. Then you have Ha, where you start to hear that smoke. All right? Then you start to hear Kak, like crackling. All right? And those are those little frictions. So Noon is warming up. Those cacklings, those little sparks. And then our moon, you have that hidden sun. You start to give birth to Atum, all right, which I just hear atom, all right, which is the conditions. So now you're starting to have atmospheres and such, like wind and moisture, which starts solidifying into Geb. All right, so wind and then moisture starts to solidify into something solid, like Geb. And then it starts to solidify. Or if it's solidified, then there's an atmosphere around it, like Nuts. So Nuts and Geb will be the same, come at the same time, because it's a solidified object that you have positive space, you have negative space. And then you start to give birth to positive and negative or push and pull forces of nature, like Arashtat, Asar, all right? And those push and pull forces are going to have politics, all right? Nababtat, all right? And Satak, lady of the house. You have star systems. Satak is sound, all right? And sometimes there's disagreements, all right? And it gives birth to flesh, harar, all right? But you're coming back from that same source because your flesh itself is going back to those same star seed conditions from that smoke as it's solidifying, starts crackling, and you hear the word or kakta, all right? And then you just keep going through your different changes So when you go to the Akasha records, you go into the conditional records. And then you go through the conditional records. You don't stop at flesh. All right. Because what were the conditions for flesh to come? All right. So that's where Baba taps into the Akasha records. And everything that ever was, everything that ever will be, all taking place now. All right. Because in order to exist now, it's going to take you through a journey. What happened before that? All right. So 511. Let's read that again. All right. After you read the chants, now you go back and do the chants again. Those 99 names. And the God Nadu Makwanu, Nuapian beings, Negroid beings, I meant to say, Negroid beings of this universe, the original persons of this Makamata planet Earth, became flesh and blood Makwanu beings called Natharu overseers and Natharu Tat, overseers, who originated by way of Masa, Orion, and Maspat Sabat Najam, Sirius star system, to grow Mash, sun, Maha, moon, Mata, earth, the thoughts into beings. So from thought or from the mental, come into the physical. Thought into beings from themselves. And now I even saw Sabat, because when you have that, when you take biology, and you know about mitosis or meiosis, I can't remember which one, but that's when the cells start to split. So from one cell, it can give birth to a duplicate of itself, and they call that the sister cell because it's a twin, all right? Or a mother cell. Mother and sister is used interchangeably, and then we know that they say that Sirius is older because the beings from Orion comes from Sirius, and then they're sent to Orion. Like women is older, so that state is older. So it gave birth to another star system called Orion. All right. Then you give birth to more circumstances, because from 2 becomes 4. And then you give birth to all the other star systems. So now I'm like, okay, Sabat is Sirius star system, but Sabat also means star itself. And Orion is a star system. You have all these different star systems. So we're going back to our mother cell. So that's why you might see Sabat being used twice for the original state and then also just as a general star. All right. Like you have cells, but they're all cells, and then you have the mother cell. All right. So we could look at Sirius as the mother cell. All right. So 512. This is by 9 reasons. First, the 9 rules of the Dawarats, cycles of absolute fatah, natural nature, of the whirling birth the world, or whirling to world. All right. So think about how your hair, it rolls around. All right. That's how your hair grows. Your hair grows like the spiral. All right. And things grow because of the sacred symbol, the circle. All right. So you have things spiral out, and that's how they expand out from themselves. It's a spiral. All right. 513 there, and originally they prepared their Mukradu children to live any place here on this planet and inside it and under its waters. All right. Why is that? Because it's sound right reason. And what do I mean by that? It's that if it's grown by natural nature, by the original moving forces of natural nature, then everything that exists within it, it reasons out. So if you have a being that's going to be growing from the waters, being grown from the various environments, they're all going to be perfectly in tune with how it's grown, because it was grown in perfection. All right. perfect efficaciousness. There's no grafting there. It's just growing. All right. You may still have something called panspermia. All right. Meaning to spread information about, because the planets do that too. But it's still a natural movement of the planets because we're still all interconnected. So, for example, if there's a explosion over on that planet, or you have a meteor or anything like that, it's going to carry. It's like let me see. Maybe I don't want to explain it that way. It's like if you have a flower and you blow the flower, or you have a bee that goes and pollinates. All right, you're gonna have it's already accounting for the different movements that nature has, and nature is happening in space too. So there's natural movements in space. All right, so space is not just meant to just what's happening here is this pocket. It doesn't have anything to do with over there. When there's a twirling happening here, all right, it's connected in some type of way to the twirling happening over there. And sometimes the death of planets give birth to new planets, or death of suns give birth to new solar systems. All right. So there's constant movements and exchanging of information, but it's still natural. All right. So all the beings that's being grown from those circumstances is going to be the most perfect beings. All right. So originally they prepared their Makradu children to live any place here on this planet, inside it or under its waters. All right. Your nose itself, all right, is considered a construct of Shu. Right. Because Shu is the ear, and your nose is a response to the ear. So that's why it's grown to be in harmony with its function, because it's meant to interact with that. So if you are being grown from the water, you're going to be a little bit different than the being that's grown here. All right. But they're all the original growths. They're all nine ether beings. All right. So 5:17. And they were the one made, Tasu 9 mind, Tasu 9 people, Tasu 9 dwellers. One dwelled on land, the other dwelled in the sky, the other dwelled in the Mayayat's waters, the others dwelt in caves, the others dwelt in hills, the others dwelt in deserts, others dwelt on ice, others dwelt in shagorat, trees, others dwelt in forests. All right, so those are 9 conditions. And nature is constantly growing in all those conditions. They're all Nagar Nadu. All right, perfectly in tune with any circumstance that they're growing from and responding to, because that's one thing. Your responsibility is to be responsible. All right, and that's why Africans, they have that tradition, call and response. All right, so you rhyme with nature at all times. So let's take a 2-minute break.